4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to what is a Monday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course, streaming live on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in. That's 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, X, at Zach Gelb. That's ZachGelb. Bobby Carpenter is going to stop by at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific time. What a weekend it was in sports. An unfortunate ending for the great story and the improbable run of the Detroit Tigers. I was not expecting Scooby-Dooby-Doo to allow a grand slam over the weekend. And the Guardians are now off to the ALCS that will commence tonight up against the New York Yankees. The Mets and the Dodgers in the NLCS we saw last night go all LA in game one. The Mets look to bounce back in a little over an hour from now. The football was awesome this weekend. You had Oregon taking down Ohio State in a nail-biter. You had in a battle of who's going to blow the big game. Will it be James Franklin or Lincoln Riley? Lincoln Riley continuing to prove that he's an overrated football coach. A game, if you are Alabama, where you wipe a lot of sweat off your forehead and you have no clue what type of football team you have. And then obviously all the football that we saw yesterday as Lamar Jackson gets the best of Jaden Daniels. The Eagles win, but Nick Sirianni act like an absolute clown, and I will go off on Nick Sirianni at some point today. But I do want to start the show in a calm mood. I'm not going to sit here today, and I'm not going to get bent out of shape over the drama Dallas choking Cowboys. Because I have done this radio now way too many times when it comes to the Cowboys where it's the same old story. Talking about the Cowboys at this point is basically like watching your favorite movie for the 100th time, and in the 100th time you watch it, as you're sitting there on your edge of your seat, you thinking that the ending, even though the movie is already produced and it's been out for 20 years, that the movie at the end is going to change. Like, I'm not going to waste my time yelling about the drama Dallas choking Cowboys. So let me put them on the back burner for just a second, because I do have a thing or two to say about one Jerry Jones. And by the way, hope you had a wonderful birthday yesterday, Jerry Jones. What a way to celebrate your 82nd birthday. But yesterday, I was really sad when I was watching that Cowboys-Lions game. And I know people are going to say, Zach, you're sad when you were watching that Lions-Cowboys game? How is that possible? You have been 110% right about the Cowboys this year. You have called the Cowboys mid. Back in the summer, you said the Cowboys were going to miss the postseason and they would be an 8 or 9 win team, and that the Cowboys are going to regress from what they've been the last 3 years. So why are you sad? Because you have a city in Detroit and you have a fan base in the Detroit Lions where they were rolling yesterday. That team on the road in Jerry's world were rocking. And for a moment, not only did they look like the best team in the NFC, which I think they are, but they look like the best team in the NFL. That's the way that they won that game yesterday, and that was the attitude that they played with. And we know Detroit has been an embarrassment for so many years. And it's been like death taxes and the Lions hiring a new coach, a new GM, and getting a new quarterback. That's kind of been the trend with the Detroit Lions. And even when they have a quarterback like Matthew Stafford, and when they had a franchise great player in Calvin Johnson, I'm talking about in recent memory, obviously it goes back to Barry Sanders as well, one of the greatest football players of all time, they never capitalize with some ridiculous talent. And the last 2.5 years, we've seen a different Lions team. And it takes a different man, a different type of coach to get the play that we've seen out of the Lions and change the entire organization around and the entire city's outlook on that organization. And when I'm watching that game yesterday, and it goes back to when they got off to that slow start a few years ago, and then they won that final game of the season up against the Packers to prevent the Packers from going to the playoffs, and then they parlayed that into a run to the NFC Championship game a season ago, and they laid the foundation for what is, and they should have won the NFC Championship game last year. They choked it. But they have laid a foundation of a window now where you got 3 to 4 years to go get to a Super Bowl and go walk away with the hardware. And I've talked about the Lions, and I've said this. Jared Goff is a good quarterback that they could win with. We know that they're going to try to run the ball down your throat with a great offensive line, maybe the best offensive line in the league, a 1-2 punch at running back with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And then their skill position players as well, in addition to Gibbs and Montgomery, are really damn good with St. Brown, with Jameson, with Laporta as well. Like, they have so many good players on the offensive side of the ball. And then when we got to the defensive side of the ball, it's can they just be serviceable? Can they just be a solid unit? And they have a player in Aidan Hutchinson who I'm a huge fan of. Like, I love Hutch. He should have been the number 1 pick of the draft, and he should be on the Jacksonville Jaguars, but thankfully that wasn't the case because now it's an awesome story for him to stay in the Detroit area and line it up with the Detroit Lions. And Aidan Hutchinson was having a great season this year. And in a blowout victory and in a blowout performance where everything is going right for the Lions, something pops up where if you're a Detroit fan, in that moment, in that game, you're thinking to yourself, wow, this could be the year. Like, I tweeted something out yesterday. Hey, how fun would it be to see a Lions-Ravens Super Bowl? That was on my mind when watching the game yesterday. And everything is going right. It is a party in Jerry's world, and the Lions are becoming the story or one of the stories of the NFL. And then your most important player on the defensive side of the ball, Aidan Hutchinson, a heart and soul player, a great player, one of the better defensive players in this league. He breaks his leg. And when that happens, even though the performance on the field was awesome, even though they just totally dismantled and obliterated the drama Dallas choking Cowboys, all the air goes out of the balloon of the Detroit Lions. Now, with that being said, it is impossible to not look at that and not say that that's an injury that impacts the season. But you could still win. The Detroit Lions, even with losing Aidan Hutchinson, which is a massive blow, they could still win a Super Bowl this year. And it's now up to their general manager, Brad Holmes, to go get somebody else in. And we could throw out the names, right? The Hassan Reddick trade, maybe. He gets traded twice. Could you have a possibility of them going to get like a Dietrich Wise from the Patriots? Will Trey Hendrickson become available from the Bengals? Like, there's a bunch of names. Can you lure and get a deal done with the Dolphins and get Shaq Barrett out of retirement? Like, there's a bunch of names. Max Crosby I've seen, which I don't think is going to happen, has even been floated out there. But I was in Philadelphia, Lions fans, when the Eagles, a franchise that never won a Super Bowl before, won a Super Bowl. And you look back at that Eagles team, they lost their Hall of Fame left tackle in Jason Peters. They lost their best linebacker in Jordan Hicks. They lost their best special teams player in Chris Maragos. And oh yeah, by the way, late in the season, they lost their franchise quarterback at the time in Carson Wentz. So you can lose a player of significance and still win a Super Bowl. You can. I know it's easy when you look at the Patriots, they had Tom Brady. In 1 year, Rob Gronkowski got hurt, and they still won a Super Bowl and came back from down 28-3 up against the Atlanta Falcons without Gronkowski. So you could lose a star player if you have the right coach, the right culture, and you have a great team. And the Lions have all that. Check, check, check. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying you're going to replace the production of Aidan Hutchinson. But in a year where football is wide open, where in the NFC, the 49ers are up and down. The Eagles are coached by a clown. The Packers are really good. The Vikings are off to a good start. The Cowboys, forget about them. And then in the AFC, yeah, the Chiefs are great. The Ravens look really good. The Texans look really good. But this is open this year. So can the Lions get the number 1 seed still? Yes. Can the Lions have the playoffs run through Detroit? Yes. Can the Lions still get to a Super Bowl this year even after losing Aidan Hutchinson? Yes. Can they still win it all this year without Hutchinson? It won't be easy, but they can get the job done. So I understand yesterday it is a somber mood, even in a day that was majority a day of elation for Detroit Lions fans. But your season isn't over here. You could still win and you could still survive even after losing a player like Aidan Hutchinson. Because we have seen teams before lose star defensive players, lose their quarterback on the offensive side of the ball, lose Hall of Fame linemen, and still go on if you have a great team, which the Lions do have, and you have a good coach, which the Lions do have, and you have a team that believes, which the Lions do have, and go on to win a Super Bowl. So yes, yesterday was awesome. Yes, yesterday also sucked if you're a fan of the Detroit Lions. But your season isn't over. Just losing Aidan Hutchinson doesn't mean that the Detroit Lions still can't go on to do the unthinkable and win a Super Bowl. And also, Lions fans, I'm not saying that you wanted Hutch to go down. It sucks. But did you think it would be this easy? Like, you know you're going to have to overcome some of the worst adversity with that franchise, with the crap that you've been through, to ultimately put that ball over the goal line and win a Super Bowl and then hoist that Lombardi trophy. I saw it happen in Philadelphia with Wentz going down, with Peters going down, with Hicks going down, with Maragos going, and all the injuries that they suffered on all sides of the ball. So they will find a way to bring some new bodies in. You will need someone else on that roster to step up, and you're not going to replace Aidan Hutchinson. But you could still be good enough to go on and go get that Super Bowl for the city of Detroit. So that's my positive message today for Lions fans. Now, let's get to the Dallas Cowboys. I'm at a point where even though I did enjoy yesterday, getting on the radio and just teeing off on the Cowboys, I don't have it in me anymore. I have now done that for so many years. And I have some Cowboys fans that are incensed with me. They're like, Zach, you're just a Cowboys hater. Zach, you know, what are you going to say now after they get some irrelevant victory up against some bad team? The Dallas Cowboys, they're not bad. They're not great. They're just stuck. And that's the worst place to be in if you're a football fan. Like, you win enough games where you're in the playoffs most years, but we know you're not a legit contender. And then when your owner in an offseason says they're all in and does nothing, and the team got worse, you think you were going to go on to be another 12-win team this year? But I think I was one of the first people in this offseason to say that the Cowboys are going to miss the playoffs. And I said that because you looked at it, you had a quarterback at the time who didn't have his deal done. You had a star wide receiver at the time that didn't have his deal done. You have a star pass rusher who didn't have his deal done. And when you were waiting to get some of those deals done, and a coach is on the final year of his contract, you were waiting, and spending so much time to get those deals done that you lost talent and you didn't improve this team. So when the NFC is getting better, even though the NFC isn't great, why would I anticipate the Cowboys to be a good team this year? Why would I anticipate the Cowboys to make the playoffs? But yesterday, it shouldn't be shocking to anyone that at home, the drama Dallas choking Cowboys just didn't show up. Because in their last 4 home games, going back to the postseason last year up against the Green Bay Packers, in the first 30 minutes of football in their last 4 home games, they have been outscored in the first half by a score of 110-35. 110-35. That's what the Cowboys have been outscored in the first half of their last 4 home games. So I could undress the quarterback, the coach, the entire organization today, but it's a waste of time. I don't need to beat down on the old horse when you know that the old horse is kind of on its last breath. I just don't need to. It's a waste of time. And any Cowboy fan, any delusional, drama Dallas choking Cowboy fan that thought this year would be different than any other year, you're living in the 90s. That's what you're doing. Because you're not living in the year of 2024, and you don't have a sane bone in your body if you thought this team was going to be different, and different in a positive way, because it's the same old Cowboys over and over and over and over again, where this owner, Jerry Jones, is all about stirring up drama, doing his press conferences, waiting to pay players, screwing over the rest of the roster, not getting his team better, and then Cowboys fans are in the stadium with the blank stare on their face like this has never happened before. Do they put those fans in the stands? Do they plant them? Because it's amazing how there's still Cowboys fans who are surprised by these performances. Once again, in their last 4 home games, in the first half of those 4 home games, they've been outscored 110 to 35. 110 to 35. 110 to 35. One more time, 110 to 35. The Cowboys are not close. The Cowboys are just stuck where they're not trash, they're not great, they can't make the playoffs, but there's going to be years like this year where they'll win enough games, they won't have a great draft pick, but they're going to miss out on the postseason. So it is October 14th? Turn out the lights. The party's over. The Cowboys season is done. What's that noise? La! Oh, sorry, that was a fat person singing. The Cowboys season is dead. Let's hear from Jerry Jones. Happy birthday, Jerry. I know I'm a day late. 82nd birthday. I'm sure you loved that cake yesterday. Here is his reaction to the blowout loss to the Detroit Lions.
Okay, that was a long day. Thanks to Detroit, and thanks to a lot of things you can criticize about what we were about out there today. It can't be about that. Can't be. We're not. We've got to assess. We've certainly got a bye week, but there's nothing magic about bye week. This was very concerning, and it was very humbling, and it was very, I felt bad because of all of our great fans. This was a shocker. I thought we would do a lot of things better in that football game, and think we can, but don't have a lot of answers.
A shocker. Once again, Jerry. Your team has been outscored in the last 4 home games in the first half, 110 to 35. How can you be shocked? You can't. He lied to us yesterday. He was lying. Liar, liar, pants on fire, Jerry Jones, on your 82nd birthday. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. When we come on back, I got 3 takes for you off what was an epic Saturday in college football. Football is back, and what better way to celebrate than winning some cash with Sleeper Picks? Sleeper Picks is a fantasy game, but you could win real money. Just pick more or less than at least 2 player stats. If your picks are right, you win. You can pick up to 8 players to win up to 100 times your money. And Sleeper has a couple huge offers to kickstart the football season. For new users, Sleeper will match your first deposit with up to $100 credit to your account. If you've already played, Sleeper's got discounted player projections for you every week of the season. So download the Sleeper app now and use promo code SCORE, that's S-C-O-R-E, and your first deposit will be doubled with the credit up to $100. What are you waiting for? Download Sleeper today and use code SCORE for a credit up to $100 match on your first deposit. That's code SCORE. Must be 18 years in most states and in state where it is legal. Promo code and other restrictions apply. Visit sleeper.com. Please wager responsibly. Gambling problem, call 1-800-426-2537 for help. Paid for by Blitz Studios.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
Alrighty, let's do a little college football from Saturday. That was an epic weekend of college football, and you're expected to have another epic weekend upcoming a few days from now, as we will get Georgia and Texas, and you will also get Alabama and Tennessee, two of the signature games next weekend. But I got to give 3 takeaways from what I saw on Saturday. I have given this take before, and a lot of people in the college football world for a while thought I was an idiot, a moron, and a dope for giving this take because they like to suck up in the college football world. They like to pucker up and kiss the behind over and over again of Lincoln Riley. My take on Lincoln Riley has been this. People talk about him like he is a god. People talk about him as he is the greatest offensive mind to ever stand on a sideline in college football. And anytime we get into the conversation of Lincoln Riley, I say this. Good coach, very good coach, but not a great coach. Because with all those Heisman Trophy winners that he's had, and Heisman Trophy finalists, and college football playoff appearances, how many wins does he have in the college football playoff? The answer, 0. A big, fat goose egg in the win column when it comes to all those teams that made the college football playoffs when Lincoln Riley was at Oklahoma. And then at USC, had Caleb Williams, won a Heisman with Caleb Williams, lost in a Pac-12 championship, and then the following season, because of his stubbornness, with going back to the well once again with Alex Grinch before firing him in season, you knew that that decision was going to derail the USC season a year ago. Think about this. Lincoln Riley couldn't even make the college football playoff with Caleb Williams. didn't even win a conference championship with Caleb Williams at USC. Lincoln Riley is overrated. And what I saw on Saturday, you know the Spider-Man meme where you have the Spider-Mans pointing at each other? That is what I felt like was happening in that game between James Franklin and also Lincoln Riley. And it was who was going to be the better Spider-Man. And in the first half, it was James Franklin, big game, no show early, down 20-6. That's what it was. And then in the second half, that game became a whole lot of fun. And it felt like I was watching the Rose Bowl. And the game came right down to the wire. And let me be a little positive here with Penn State for a second. First off, their tight end is going to be the first tight end picked in the draft. And the play that Andy ran, I've never seen before, where the tight end snaps the ball and then they snap it to a backup quarterback. They fire it over to Aller, and then the tight end who snapped the ball is in the end zone. And he catches the ball and makes a Rob Gronkowski type of snag. So that was awesome. And also, with the game on the line, Drew Aller at the end of regulation looked like the Drew Aller that he's supposed to be. 4th and 10, bang. 4th and 7, bang. Big throw after big throw. So give credit to Penn State. But at the end of the game, and I think Penn State is an overrated team. I think they're a good team. They should make the college football playoff, but I can't expect anything more than that. Like the fact that they're the third best team in the country right now shows you how much of a down year it is and how open it is this year in college football. But towards the end of that game at regulation, Lincoln Riley was trying to choose how he was going to win. And he panicked and he got cute. That's what he did. Now, I'm watching that game with about 90 seconds to go. And I even turned to my dad who was watching the game with, and I said, you know, they have the timeouts. Try to catch him off guard here on first down and run the ball. I don't think it's a bad decision. And they do that, but they lost 2. And once they lost 2 yards, he said, I'm going to run the clock down where either my quarterback's going to make a big throw or not on third down to put us in field goal range, and we will either kick the game-winning field goal or we will then miss the game-winning field goal and go into overtime. His quarterback ended up throwing a pick. But I don't care how much confidence you have in your kicker in college football. Do these coaches ever learn that you can't trust your kicker? So it's one thing to try to play for a field goal, but you can't stop trying to move the football and matriculate the football down the field. And that's what Lincoln Riley was doing in that spot. You want to get as close as possible, not just get to the bare minimum of the field goal range line. So that to me was a really stupid, and I mean a stupid decision by Lincoln Riley. And then the irony of it is he has all this confidence in his kicker, and then his kicker in overtime misses the field goal, which then Penn State gets the ball back because you get the ball back anyway in college overtime. And then the Penn State kicker ends up drilling the game winner, and Penn State wins. But that's another masterclass by Lincoln Riley. If you are someone like me that says, hey, he's an overrated coach, just showing that once again, he's an overrated coach. Now, number 2, Dan Lanning. Oh, that was sweet. That was really sweet for the Ducks of Oregon. Because Dan Lanning the last 2 years, he has been someone that has been on the rise. I've said this to his face before, and I mean this in a positive way. He is a football psycho. Like, did you see him after the game? He's running around. He just has that look in his eyes. This dude's religion, and this dude just gets off on football. And I love that out of a coach, where just something overtakes him when he steps foot on that football field, and it just runs through his body where he's only focused on football, and only football. Like, I'll go back to that Colorado game where he was like, think with your helmet, like talk with your helmet. And he was just going nuts in the locker room. But I look back at that game, I thought Oregon played a B-plus game, and I thought they were clearly better than Ohio State, but they made so many mistakes in that game, whether it wasn't converting when you got towards the goal line, you know, the kicking that was a problem for them, that it almost cost them the game. But it was very good to see Oregon win, because Oregon, the first 2 games of the season against Idaho and Boise State, did not look like a national championship contender that we thought they were going to be. And this was a moment on the national stage to win people back over and put you back in the line of thinking that Oregon can go on out there and compete for a national championship this year. So give credit to Dan Lanning getting his biggest win at Oregon, because the last 2 years, even though as good as he's been, like last year he had 2 chances to beat Kalen DeBoer in Washington and couldn't get the job done. And the other take in this game is Ryan Day. He could win games, but he can't win the big game. And the Ohio State fan, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway, they got to be the dumbest college football fan. Because the arrogance with that fan base, how they were celebrating, and I know they hate Michigan, but they haven't beat Michigan in 3 years. Michigan has won the last 3 Big Ten championships. And when Texas blew out Michigan this year, you would have thought that Ohio State beat the doors off Michigan in that game when it was Texas who beat the brakes off Michigan in that game. So that Ohio State fan thought that they won like a national championship when Texas beat Michigan the way that I was seeing it on social media. And you, in a game that you didn't even play well, you're still in it with the chance to win it at the end. And the lack of awareness by the quarterback in Howard and the coach Ryan Day is alarming. How they weren't ready to go off the penalty and the clock was running and they let 7 valuable seconds tick away is wild. And then you basically had the Dak Prescott play in the playoff game a few years ago against the 49ers where the quarterback runs too far, and then the clock runs out. And you couldn't even attempt one final play or field goal. So it's just one of those things where this is the year, right? I've heard all offseason long, even after Michigan won a championship, Ohio State's the team to beat. Ohio State, pound for pound, may have the best roster in college football. Like, Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel have had better rosters. And I'm not saying this Ohio State roster is bad. It's a very good roster. But to act like this roster was different than some of the rosters in the past was lunacy to me. It never made any sense. And in their first big test of the season, after beating up on all those cupcakes, Ohio State, they didn't look like the better team. They still had a chance to win. At the end of the game, their quarterback and coach cost them. So Lincoln Riley's overrated. Lanning gets his biggest win at Oregon. Ryan Day can't win the big game. And then finally, let me get to Alabama. I don't know what to make out of Alabama. I really don't. Alabama in that first half up against Georgia looked like a team that I predicted to go to the national championship game this year. But ever since that first half where they let out a punch and a scream that was so dominant up against Georgia, they were bad in the second half up against Georgia where they almost blew the game. They lose a game to Vanderbilt where Vanderbilt just dominated them. And don't tell me they were hungover from the Georgia win. Vanderbilt just dominated them in the game. And even when they win up against South Carolina, they almost blew the game at the end, allowing the touchdown. Okay, you maintain the 2-point lead because the Gamecocks couldn't convert the 2-point conversion, but then you can't even recover the kick. So that's a win where you take it, obviously, if you're Alabama, after losing to Vanderbilt. But I don't know where they're heading. They're 5-1. This is an enormous week for Alabama because Alabama now goes up against Tennessee at Rocky Top, good old Rocky Top. And Tennessee has been a team that they've lost some luster to because Tennessee, they had a nice performance up against Oklahoma. Then they lose to Arkansas, and then they needed overtime to beat Florida. So this is one of those moments, this is one of those measuring sticks coming up on Saturday that we'll see at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, which will tell us where Tennessee is heading this year and where Alabama is heading this year. But after looking so great in that first half up against Georgia, I have no clue what we're going to see from Alabama moving forward because they lose to Vanderbilt and then just barely and had to sweat one out. And it was like a sigh of relief that they were able to get the job done up against South Carolina. So those are my takeaways from this weekend in college football. 855-212-4227. 855-212-4227. Delta 9 Brian in North Carolina is next up on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Brian, how you been, my man?
All right, how you doing, Zach?
Doing fantastic.
So, I've been driving home from South Carolina today, across the great state of North Carolina. I drove past the Panther Stadium. I know we didn't do too well against the Falcons. The Falcons are a good team, but I was just curious if you think the Panthers have any shot at beating the Cowboys in a few weeks, so I can make a handshake bet with a coworker who's a Cowboys fan, and maybe win a breakfast biscuit or something.
I hope you get a good breakfast biscuit. I will say that, and I got to just let you run, Brian, because there's some noise in the background. But that game isn't until December 15th. So trying to predict if the Cowboys will even still be in it then is a stretch. But even with how dreadful it is for the drama Dallas choking Cowboys, I have a tough time seeing the Carolina Panthers beat the Cowboys. But if you're only betting a biscuit sandwich, yeah, just bet the biscuit. Because you got nothing to lose there. You know, worst case, you got to go buy someone a biscuit with some extra gravy on it. And then if somehow the Carolina Panthers do the unthinkable, and maybe Bryce Young is back by then, and they win, you got a good old biscuit sandwich. So, yeah, that's something that's tough to predict from now until December 15th. But I would still err on the side that, yes, the Cowboys beat the Panthers because the Cowboys beat up on the bad teams, but then when they play good teams or even mediocre teams, then they get their ass and their teeth just absolutely kicked in. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We will take a timeout. We'll come on back. We'll update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We will get to a news brief next. Update time first. Here is El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
And Zach, we're sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Protect your family, your phone, and your furry friends with Life electronic device and pet health insurance. Dolphins expect to get Tua Tagovailoa back at some point this season. However, Mike McDaniel stopped short of a timeline. Tua still has some hurdles and tests to pass, along with another week at least on IR. Lions pass rusher Aidan Hutchinson underwent successful surgery for his broken leg, expected to make a full recovery. Injury usually in the 6 to 8 month category. However, the Lions have not put out a timetable of his return as of yet. Jets and Bills, Monday Night Football, just a wild week. They fired Robert Saleh. They put Jeff Ulbrich in charge. Nathaniel Hackett was stripped of his play calling duties. That went to Todd Downing, who has no worries that Aaron Rodgers will bounce back after a couple of difficult weeks.
In a 2-decade career, he has very few blips on the radar. And I know that Aaron himself has said that the last couple of weeks aren't up to his standard, but that does not necessarily sound an alarm.
Mets and Dodgers Game 2 NLCS coming up top of the hour. LA coming in with a share of the all-time postseason scoreless inning streak at 33 straight, looking to take the first 2 games of the series. Tonight it's the ALCS, Yankees and Guardians of the Bronx for Game 1. I'm Marco Belletti.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Infinity Sports Network. That's Infinity Sports Network to follow us on Instagram.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
It's time to ask the pros, where you, the listener, gets to ask us a question. It's brought to you by our friends at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at INF Sportsnet or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag #AskThePros, and be listening later in the show when we might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Okay, let's get to Jerry Jones. Not panicking after another embarrassing loss that the Cowboys suffered, this time at the hands of the Detroit Lions.
I regret that for our fans, but the key thing to think about right here is we're 6 games into this thing. We're 3-3. We've had times when we haven't liked where we were when we were in the early part of the season. We don't like where we are right now. There's a lot of work to do, got a lot of improvement before we'll sit here with any smiles on our face.
Yeah, real inspired by that message. Jeez. Been outscored in the last 4 home games, 110-35 in the first half. But we're 3-3. In years past, we've got off to some slow starts and it will turn around. Okay, but how are we going to be talking about you at the end of the year? Even if you make the playoffs, which I don't think the Cowboys will, how are we going to be talking about you? Up in the postseason, they didn't get the job done when they needed to. It's the same old crap with the drama Dallas choking Cowboys. Here is Jerry Jones. Hey, Mike McCarthy, final year on his deal. We just saw the Jets get rid of their coach, Robert Saleh. Doug Peterson on the hot seat. Other coaches as well. Are you considering moving on from Big Mike McCarthy in season?
Oh, I haven't even considered that. I'm not considering that. Just so you're clear, I'm not considering that.
But you've done it
I wouldn't be a hypothetical in that matter. Do you think I'm an idiot? Do you? Okay, well, I'm not going to hypothetical with you about when I'd consider coaching change in light of the timing we're sitting here with. I'm not at all.
Sounds like a guy, Stu, that is considering a coaching change potentially. Because why would you get so animated and so annoyed by that question if it didn't at least cross your mind? So I know he could spin it as though that's emphatically him denying it. I still don't think a change will happen in season because that's a misnomer with Jerry Jones. He's actually more patient than impatient. But we could all guarantee this. There is no chance Mike McCarthy's coaching this team next year. And the only way, in my opinion, that Bill Belichick isn't coaching the Dallas Cowboys next season is if the Eagles offer him the job. Because he would much rather go to Philly than he would in Dallas. Now, talking about the Eagles, I will get to their buffoon of a head coach, Nick Sirianni, coming up at 4:20 p.m. Eastern time today. Very appropriate time to talk about Nick Sirianni, by the way. But let's hear Lane Johnson on the offensive struggle so far with the Philadelphia Eagles.
I feel like a very constipated offense. We do some good things. We have all the stability, but we have yet to prove, that we can hit on all cylinders. So that's definitely something that's going to be on our mind, moving forward. That's something we got to fix, especially starting fast. We haven't done that in 2 years, so push ourselves in the bind.
They are clogged up. I love Lane Johnson. I've never heard a player say the offense is constipated, though. That is awesome. That's a great, great, great quote from Lane Johnson. But I thought the most damaging part, it's been that way for 2 years. And that's a dude that doesn't need to play anymore. That's a dude that's already going to the Hall of Fame. That's a dude that's already won a Super Bowl. When you hear that from Lane Johnson, he's got to tell the truth, right? There's no more Fletcher Cox in that building. There's no more Jason Kelsey. Him and Brandon Graham are the two most important voices in that locker room. And you could just hear the disgust by one Lane Johnson. Let's go to Terry McLaurin. I know the Commanders lost to the Ravens yesterday, but since they played a close game against one of the better teams in the NFL, is this a moral victory in a loss to the Baltimore Ravens? Here's Terry McLaurin.
No, we didn't fulfill what we wanted to get done because we wanted to come away with a win. There's no moral victories in this, but this is definitely something that we're going to be able to learn from going forward. I like the way we fought to the end, but there's no moral victories. You got to give credit to them. That's why they're a championship-level team. We got a lot to learn from going forward, but we came in here and competed at a high level. But other than that, there's no moral victories.
And unfortunate news with the Commanders today. Tom Pelissero just reported Jonathan Allen is feared to suffer a significant pectoral injury that will require season-ending surgery. Now, I appreciate Terry McLaurin's answer. That is what you're supposed to say. We don't believe in moral victories. It did feel like a moral victory, though, yesterday for the Commanders. It was a good measuring stick game where we know the Commanders are good. We know the Commanders have overachieved what we thought. They're still not great, but when you went up against one of the better teams in the NFL, you were able to hang in there and go punch for punch for a while. That's encouraging. Rome wasn't built in one day. The Commanders are not going to turn around instantly, but I didn't walk away from that game saying, oh, now the Commanders can't win the NFC East this year. The Cowboys are struggling big time. The Giants stink. And the Philadelphia Eagles have a coaching problem. The Commanders could still win this division. Remember when Calvin Ridley elected to join the Tennessee Titans? There was an idea that he was going to go to the Patriots, but then his girlfriend did not want to live in the New England area, so they ended up in Nashville. Let's check in on Calvin Ridley, as he did not appear all that happy yesterday with his team's performance and also him not getting the ball.
I had targets in what part of the game I had targets?
Fourth quarter, a lot of them.
All right, then. So I need some in the beginning of the game, too. Then, getting crazy for me. So I'm just, it is what it is. But I suck today. I got to be better. But I got to get the ball a little early in the game so I can be in the game and here with the team so I can play well also.
They're an amusing football team. They're not good. They're bad. The quarterback always turns over the football. The coach hates the quarterback. That's pretty damn clear. And now the star wide receiver one of the star wide receivers upset that he's not getting the ball. But hey, That's what happens when you pick a team because your girlfriend didn't want to go somewhere else. Not that that team is all that good, let me be abundantly clear. But when you just pick a team based off what your significant other, where she wants to live or not, you can't really be mad with anything because I thought it was a faulty process by Calvin Ridley. Here is Andre Sisco. I think the only reason why Doug Peterson isn't fired today is because the Jags are in London for another week. But here is him ripping the Jaguars' effort in London as the Bears just smothered Jacksonville yesterday.
Yeah, it was really bad. I don't know, I just felt like it was, how should I say this? A lot of quit. And, I don't know, last line of defense, in a situation like that, you could feel when we're playing as one and when we're not. And felt very early in the game, once things maybe at a halftime, that we weren't playing as one.
How concerning is that?
Extremely, and dangerous.
I think Doug Peterson, regardless of his team's performance this weekend up against the Patriots, it will be his last game coaching the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I know you may say, Zach, but what happens if they win? I think the only reason he is not fired today is because of the fact that they are staying in London. That's the only reason why. So I think this will be his last game as the coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. That team, it just cooked. They're cooked this year. And when players start talking about quitting and effort, that's a really ugly situation. Let's go to Ryan Day. Crying Ryan on the bad clock management at the end of the loss to Oregon.
I mean, I felt like we were in field goal range there, and we wanted to keep adding to the field goal, because if you do, every time you add 5 yards, it increases it. And you take a brutal penalty like that pushes you back. It's heartbreaking, but that's football. And so the offense had a chance to go win the game at the end.
Yeah, they did. And after that penalty with your star young wide receiver, right, offense pass interference, it happens. You allowed 7 valuable seconds to run off the clock, and then your quarterback didn't go down earlier when you guys still had a timeout. So it's just bad preparation and bad execution by Crying Day and his team. Not surprised, because he's a fake tough guy. When you're led by a fake tough guy, things like that happen. Finally, here's Kenny Dillingham after another Arizona State victory.
We were picked to win 4 games this year, so a lot of Sun Devil fans obviously picked the over in Vegas, right? For those of you guys who won, put that money back into the collective, right? Because you get to celebrate these wins. You get to have another cold one with your friends. You get to have great Saturday nights. That should be enough for you already. Take that money that you've won, put it back into these kids, put it back into that collective, right? And let's enjoy the rest of the year.
I almost called him Kyle Dillingham because on the broadcast, when they showed him, that's what they wrote for the coach's name. But how about Arizona State, man? They are 5-1, and they just beat Utah on Friday, 27-19, coming off a victory up against Kansas. Their only loss this season was to Texas Tech. They've also beat Texas State, Mississippi State, and Wyoming. All right, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We will take a 5-minute break. When we come on back, let's get into a little MVP discussion. I got 2 names. They're not quarterbacks. One's an offensive player, one's a defensive player, where they need to be in the forefront through 5-6 weeks of the season in the MVP conversation. Coming on back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. So Yom Kippur was Friday into Saturday. So I had to fast starting sundown on Friday. So on Friday, I elected to get everyone pizza around here. And we got a bunch of pies from L'Industrie, which was great. I don't know about you, Stu. I got home on Friday at about 6:30. And I had some time to kill before we had the Dodgers-Padres game. And I turned on Barstool Sports Advisors because I love watching Stu Feiner give out his picks with Big Cat. And they had Brandon Walker on this week. And I haven't done this in a while, this early. But I passed out, and I just fell asleep on the couch for at least an hour and a half because I think I was like in a food coma off 3 slices of pizza. So, Stu, I have to ask you, I don't know what they're putting in their sauce in the industry. Did you snooze a little bit on Friday? Were you stuffed on Friday?
Yeah, so I didn't snooze, but I usually eat dinner around 7 o'clock when I get home, and I was not hungry till like 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Oh, you're
and even
crazy.
then, I had a little snack. That was it. I was full.
We had that pizza, like 4:30, 5 o'clock?
Not that.
You were going to go have dinner after that?
Yeah, there's no way. There's no chance of me having dinner after that.
So I'm a little concerned. It's a big sports day today. The Mets are playing the Dodgers right now. The Dodgers are up in the NLCS 1-0 after the Mets got blown out last night. The Dodgers are going to go a bullpen game today. The Mets are going to go with Sean Manaea. We also have Yankee baseball tonight up against the Guardians, game 1 of the ALCS. And then Monday Night Football, Jets and the Buffalo Bills. I'm actually going to the Jets-Bills game tonight, covering the game. So if you want to check out my social media, at Zach Gelb, Twitter and Instagram, ZachGelb. I'll give you all the behind the scenes during the game, and then after the game, we'll get into the locker room and talk to some players. But I just got the menu sent to me by the Jets of what they're serving in the press box, and I'm concerned after Friday falling asleep if I will now fall asleep in the press box because we just had 3 little slices of pizza on Friday and I fell asleep. Here is the press box menu tonight for the Jets-Bills game, Stu. Strip loin, mashed potatoes, beer-battered onion rings, dinner rolls and butter, seasonal vegetables, got to have some healthy munch in there, Caesar salad, chicken noodle soup, Italian chicken cutlet sandwich powder, candy bars, corn tortilla chips, salsa roja, vegetable dip, marinated grilled chicken breasts, hot dogs if you want them, and there's ketchup, onions, and sauerkraut, beef sliders, cheeseburger sliders, French fries, house-made trail mix, individual bags of popcorn, warm churros and chocolate and caramel sauce, bunch of they say ice cream novelties, they have it listed as, coffee, and bottled water. Now, I'm going to try to portion control there, but they have 14 freaking food items.
You're definitely going to need the coffee afterwards.
Post-game press conference. Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to be in a food coma. I'll tell you that. So, going to be a busy, busy night for your boy. A lot of eating and watching football. All righty. Let me get to 2 players that I think should be right at the forefront of the MVP conversation. What I've seen so far through the first 6 weeks of football, I don't think there is a quarterback right now that should be in the lead on the MVP odds. I just don't. I'll pull up the odds in just a second. I think I saw that Patrick Mahomes was the MVP frontrunner. Yeah, plus 250. Stu, I don't nothing against Mahomes. Everyone would die to have Patrick Mahomes as their quarterback. But Mahomes has not had this great statistical season. That defense has been better than the offense. And it kind of just shows you how no quarterback has really taken the baton and run with it through the first 6 games of the season. If Mahomes could be, it's weird to say he's playing above average ball, but for him, he's playing above average ball. And right now, he's the odds-on favorite to win the MVP at plus 250. That's wild to me, Stu.
It can't be. I mean, I guess it can, but you just look at the stats alone, and I know the MVP is kind of like a stats award, and Mahomes just does not have those kind of stats right now.
I'm looking at the first... Let's see. How many quarterbacks do they list before we get a non-quarterback? Oh, my God. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 quarterbacks that are listed with higher odds than the first non-quarterback to win the MVP. The MVP has turned out to just be like a disgraceful award where it's, okay, let's just call it who's the best quarterback in the league. And Offensive Player of the Year kind of now turned into who's the best non-quarterback in the league. Mahomes is at plus 250. Lamar Jackson is plus 550. Josh Allen's at plus 900. CJ Stroud is at plus 650. Jaden Daniels at plus 1,300. Brock Purdy's at plus 1,300. Sam Darnold's at plus 1,400. Joe Burrow's at plus 1,600. Jared Goff at plus 1,800. Jordan Love at plus 2,000. Jalen Hurts at plus 3,000. Kirk Cousins at plus 3,000. Baker Mayfield at plus 3,000. Kyler Murray at plus 4,000. Dak Prescott at plus 4,500. And Caleb Williams at plus 5,000. The first non-quarterback listed, depending on which book you look at, Derrick Henry at either plus 5,000 or plus 6,000. Derrick Henry, to me, right now, if I had to pick an offensive player to win the MVP, he would be the MVP award winner. Now, we haven't seen an MVP be won by a running back since 2012. But Derrick Henry is first in carries right now, first in rushing yards, and first in rushing touchdowns. And I don't know about you, Stu. At the end of last season, let me just have your take here before we found out they got Derrick Henry, because I think this is most people. When the Baltimore Ravens had the number 1 seed, dominated the regular season, and then in the AFC Championship game, when the Kansas City Chiefs basically had Patrick Mahomes be a game manager, and the Baltimore Ravens offense was a no-show, do you think that we would have been expecting, after 6 games in the 2024 season, for the Baltimore Ravens to have one of those teams that we believe in to get to the Super Bowl this year? Would you have thought that?
I would have said no. I would have said that the Ravens had their best chance of getting past the Chiefs and winning a Super Bowl last year, and they failed.
And I'm the same way as you. And I was someone, for years, I have defended Lamar Jackson. And I thought the postseason narrative about Lamar Jackson was too small of a sample size, but last year is when that changed. But look where we are, and I understand football's wide open this year, and there's a ton of parity. Through 6 games of this season so far, in 6 weeks of this season, Baltimore is back in that circle of trust to go out to a Super Bowl this year. And when I look at all the teams in the AFC right now, and we'll see what happens with Buffalo tonight, but the way that Buffalo's played the last 2 weeks, you know, you look around the Bengals, even in a win, I'm not even all that encouraged by them. The Texans are a team that, hey, they probably are the next one up if it's not Baltimore. But I look at Baltimore, they're an offense right now that scares the crap out of me in a good way. And if the Chiefs are going to basically be okay on offense and they're going to be defense first, I could see Baltimore this year scoring 21, 24 points in an AFC Championship game and taking down Kansas City because of what Derrick Henry has brought to this team. And I know they've lost this year, right? They didn't get a toe down with Likely, and they could have beat the Chiefs or at least had that game. Oh, they would have gone for 2 and gone for the win, so maybe they don't get it there. And they blew a game up against the Raiders that they should have never lost. But I look at Derrick Henry. He has changed my outlook with this Baltimore Ravens team. And I said this last week, and I know, right, you're Raiders. To me, I don't get this stuff with Davante Adams. Now that Aidan O'Connell's playing, that's a reason why he may stay, because he likes Aidan O'Connell. Like, does the media and do the Raiders just think we're idiots? The Raiders haven't got what they wanted yet for Davante Adams. That's why they haven't made a trade. But the Baltimore Ravens, at this point, like, go pounce. Who gives a rat's ass about a second-round pick? I give up a second-round pick in a heartbeat. It's at the end of the second round if you're Baltimore for Davante Adams. And could you imagine with the way that they line up now with Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews finally found a pulse again last week. You have Isaiah Likely. You got Derrick Henry. You got Lamar Jackson. If you had Davante Adams to that, man, I would easily, I picked the Ravens to go to the Super Bowl before that, heading into the season. I just didn't want to pick Kansas City. But you would have a legitimate case to make for Baltimore not only get to the Super Bowl, but win it if they go get Davante Adams. But this idea that, there's 15 or 16 quarterbacks on the odds in Vegas right now that have higher odds to win the MVP than Derrick Henry, that's a joke. And I'm sure, right, Lamar and Derrick Henry will split votes. But if you made me vote for one offensive player right now, it would be Derrick Henry. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, Stu, and I'm sorry to do this to you, because you bring up Davante Adams talking about the Ravens. I will also now bring up the Raiders once again because the defensive player I'm going to name just tormented your team yesterday. How about that performance from TJ Watt, Stu, where he didn't even register a sack in the game?
I was just going to say that. He didn't even have a sack, and he wrecked the game.
But the 2 fumbles that he forced, I thought I was watching Peanut Tillman for a second play defensive end with the punching that he was doing yesterday. That was just sick. Absolutely sick. And I know Justin Fields played a good game yesterday, but the Steelers' offense has not been stupendous. And this has been a team with the Steelers that their best player by a country mile and their most valuable player by a country mile is TJ Watt. And this dude is the best defensive player in football. And if I had an MVP vote right now, I'd be mulling it over, not even a quarterback. It would be, do I go with Derrick Henry or do I go with TJ Watt? But man, Stu, like you probably went to sleep last night and you probably woke up in the middle of the night with a sweat, a cold sweat, with the way that TJ Watt was just all up in your team's grill the other day. That was wild.
No, and it was. And the 2 fumbles, one was at the goal line as the Raiders were trying to score, and the other one was basically like almost in the other side of the field, almost in the other red zone. So it set up the Steelers nicely for a touchdown. It was just incredible. He wrecks the game. I don't know if there's a defensive player in the last 10 years that wrecks the game like he does. Just single-handedly just takes over the game. Like there are great pass rushers we've seen the past 10 years or so, but just unbelievable.
All right, I'm distracted because I'm watching the Mets-Dodgers game. Leadoff home run, Francisco Lindor. Oh, my God. So you just said in the last 10 years, you don't know if there's a defensive player that destructs the game like TJ Watt?
Yeah.
You know what? I think he's better than his brother, too.
I do, too.
Who won a Defensive Player of the Year 3 times? You know? Think about that. 3 times. He is just, he's a freak. And Myles Garrett is great. And I think you're splitting hairs, but I'd rather have TJ Watt slightly over Myles Garrett. Chris Jones has had, he doesn't get enough national respect, but he has had championship moments and he's made big plays in those Super Bowls. But yeah, TJ Watt is one of the greatest defensive players I've ever seen. The only one, here's the obvious one. There is a player that has been more destructive than him, Aaron Donald. With what Aaron Donald was able to do, and he also, like TJ Watt hasn't won a championship. Aaron Donald won a championship and took matters into his own hands. Now, not a defensive end, but he took matters into his own hands in that Super Bowl, pushing back the line, and then going on out there and forcing that throw early when you had Jamar Chase wide open down the right sideline. So Donald's actually the first guy that comes to mind. But you can make it like you could say something like that. It's not crazy. That's how damn great TJ Watt is. So this is going to be difficult. I have not had, well, that's not true. When I did nights, I had the Rangers on some runs when I'm watching the game.
Yeah, how did you do that? Looking back.
You know what I did? Doug Desher, who used to work here, used to be our great behind-the-scenes guy with all the audio. He made a sounder for me that went off, and it was like, Zach's getting distracted by the Rangers again. And we would play that and with the Rangers goal horn, because I would freak out on the air when that did transpire. That was a long at-bat, though. I saw Lindor was up, and then I saw the ball was out in right field, and it felt like 2 minutes to go by. So Francisco Lindor, who has been sensational, giving the Mets a big jump and a big bolt of energy right out of the gate in a game that they have to win. And let me tell you, it's weird how much confidence I have with this team, where they got punched in the mouth last night and dragged all around the field last night. But I'm very confident that they're going to win today. And I got tickets for Wednesday and Thursday, so games 3 and 4. So I would very, very, very much enjoy this being 1-1, and then the environment for a game 3 is just going to be absolutely bonkers. So, geez. Who would you go with MVP right now, Stu? Would you go with Watt? Would you go with Henry? Or do you go with one of these? Like, if I had to pick a quarterback, Love is in the conversation, even though he missed 2 games. Goff, I guess, could be in the conversation, but I think of the running backs first there. Josh Allen, if he, the last 2 weeks, I think he'll be there at the end of the year. Lamar, I would go Henry over him. CJ Stroud is obviously someone that jumps out. I'm not going Purdy or Darnold, but right now I would say Henry is the MVP of the league, and then I would put TJ Watt in at number 2. And That, to me, the offensive player of the year right now is Henry. The defensive player of the year is TJ Watt. And that should translate into MVP votes for both of them. It's stupid that we just go quarterback now.
I would go Henry, personally. I just think what he's done in the running game and kind of given that offense a bit of a jolt after, like I said, just an awful end to their season. Bringing him in, and maybe the offense is even better now. Like, I think I would give
it is better.
Him. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how you stop them in the red zone. I really don't. Because you don't know where the ball's going to, and it's so tricky for a defender. All righty, we'll take a timeout. When we come on back, we'll get into the Nick Sirianni stuff. And I have not heard this audio yet, but it just happened about 15 minutes ago. Nick Sirianni apologized in front of the media today in his in his press conference today for his antics after the game. That's at least the headline that I saw. We will hear that audio when we come on back, but it is being dubbed as a Nick Sirianni apology. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
Alrighty, rocking and rolling on a Monday. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Bobby Carpenter going to join us coming up in 40 minutes from now. We'll recap that Ohio State-Oregon game, Penn State-USC, and talk about a few other college football items from this past weekend. But first up, without further ado, or excuse me, I was about to toss the news brief there. I don't know why there.
You got me. I was like, what's happening?
I was like, we already did the news brief. See, this is what happens. I'm watching the Met-Dodger game.
Mets.
My brain is spinning a million miles an hour, and I was about to say, without further ado, and I'm not talking about Freddie Adu, let's update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio, and let's get to a news brief. And I looked down at my rundown. I'm like, we already did the news brief. You know why it was? I'm distracted by the Mets game, and then we're going to throw to audio here when it comes to Nick Sirianni. So in my brain, I guess that just calculated that, oh, Zach, we're going to go to a news brief here. There was also a while, I don't know why, whenever we'd have when I did the nights, whenever there'd be like a long top of the hour segment, and sometimes I would run late, I would get to the end and I'd be like, all right, let's get to the latest update. Here's the Ackman, Rich Ackerman. And Hickey would get in my ear and be like, dude, it's 8:20. What are you doing right now? You got to take a break, come back, do another segment, and then go to the update. So sorry, I was in my Cowboys first half form right there to start this segment. I'll turn it around, though. The Cowboys, they will not. Alrighty. So the Eagles-Browns game. I said this going into the weekend, that not only did the Eagles have to win, but they had to win with style points. The Eagles had to win, and they had to cover the spread. Because just finding a way to just eke out a win up against the Cleveland Browns, who are a dreadful football team, who are a football team that is absolutely lost. There's a problem with the coach and the quarterback right now. That team has too much talent through 6 weeks of the season to only have one win. That's just the fact of the matter here. So that team is just mentally fried. However, that Eagles team, they were 10-1 to start the season a year ago. They won one game down the stretch, and they have lost that it factor about them. Where 2 years ago they were in a Super Bowl, where at halftime they were up by 10, and they were outplaying Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, and they couldn't slam the door shut. And even in a 10-1 start last year, they weren't playing great football, but they were still winning games. So you were like, okay, when they figure it out and they play their best, oh, they're really going to be firing. But then down the stretch, they had so many problems in that locker room and no leadership. And a head coach who, let's be real, he's like a big child who is a doormat. And he's just getting walked all over in his own locker room. And they won one game down the stretch and they lost in the wild card round to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this offseason, a lot came out about this coach and Nick Sirianni. A lot came out about Nick Sirianni and his lack of relationship with Jalen Hurts. And the locker room, in my opinion, made it clear that we like Nick Sirianni because he's a player's coach, but do they respect him? And they could say they respect him, but they walk all over him. And I really did think that the Eagles did Sirianni a disservice by bringing him back because he's an offensive-minded coach who doesn't call the plays. They've handed over the offense to Kellen Moore, and it seems like he's running Sirianni's offense, but it's just more calling the plays. You brought in another defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio, who has been a head coach before and is a respected voice in this league, but the defense hasn't been all that special. It's like you look around this team, he's the head coach, but he doesn't call the plays, and he's a head coach that doesn't really communicate all that much with the quarterback. They had to have like meetings during the bye week, I guess, to smooth over this relationship. And this head coach, to me, is just like a head coach in title, but in reality, he's a babysitter, and he can't even babysit properly because his entire team imploded down the stretch last year. So it's one thing to lose, or it's one thing to be disappointing, and then it's another thing to be embarrassing. And Nick Sirianni has now become embarrassing when even after they win, a dude that used to be in lockstep with this fan base, right? And would used to do quirky things, but it would reflect the city. And it would be someone that Eagles fans who they did not like at first ended up loving. Now that is all quickly out the window. Because when you're not playing at a satisfactory level, you can't act like a petulant douche. Okay? And that's what Nick Sirianni did yesterday. They were lucky. And sometimes you'd rather be lucky than good. But yesterday, you almost wish that the Eagles weren't lucky and they lost that game, because then every show today would be saying, okay, Jeffrey Lurie has to fire the coach. But here's the thing. They won the game, and every show today is also saying they have to fire the coach. Because that coach should have just walked off the field and should have just shut up. And right, it would have been something where you don't feel great about the team's performance, but you don't make it worse than what it was. And you could just say, hey, we got to be better. We won the game. We rather have these performances where we win and fix on those things, and then we'll become an even better team. But since there's been a lot of noise surrounding Nick Sirianni since the offseason, and deservedly so, he elected after the game, when the game was wrapping up, to point to the fans and basically do like, hey, what do you got to say now? You know, all you guys were booing us, you guys gave up on us, and we won the game, as if he was actually proud of the way that his football team performed yesterday. Because the goal isn't just to beat the Cleveland Browns. The goal is to go win a Super Bowl. And I'll tell you this team has the talent to win the Super Bowl, but they ain't winning a Super Bowl with this dude as the head coach. You know, do you see Andy Reid acting this way? Do you see Sean McDermott, who has said some stupid things, but do you see him act this way on the sidelines? Do you see Sean McVay act this way on the sidelines? Kyle Shanahan, Kevin O'Connell. Like, I'm just running through coaches. I think we could run through all 32 coaches in the league. Even Dan Campbell, who is clearly exuberant. Would he ever taunt his own fan base? And this is Philadelphia. This isn't like, you're not the coach of the LA Chargers where they barely have a fan base. This is a team where the fan base is so passionate. And you're going to taunt them after you barely beat a dreadful, and I mean a dreadful, Cleveland Browns team? Like, Nick Sirianni, shut the hell up, go into your locker room, talk to your team, talk to the media, and don't be an embarrassment. And it's crazy that I could say this about a coach that 2 years ago was coaching in a Super Bowl. He is not fit to be an NFL head coach. And all the magic that he had in Philadelphia has now evaporated since that 10-1 start a season ago. That's one of the worst collapses I've ever seen in the NFL, and it's not like you've had some strong start to this season. And you're going to not only go after your fans at the end of the game, but then you bring your kids to the podium, so you think, oh, the tough Philadelphia media is not going to ask you the tough questions? And you had a press conference where he was just rambling. And it sounded like he was like emotionally unstable to be an NFL head coach. I watched the entirety of that press conference. I was like, Jeffrey Lurie, go get your court gesture off the stage. I thought he was doing like stand-up comedy that was just bombing. It was uncomfortable. It was cringeworthy. and it was extremely awkward. So let's hear Nick Sirianni. He was asked about going back and forth with the fans yesterday, which is just like JV9 behavior. You know, I expect that from like a high school football coach that thinks he's, hot stuff and is trying to relive his glory days on a high school sideline when he's like 45 years old, coach of the team. That's what you saw that yesterday from Nick Sirianni, who was paid millions of dollars to coach a football team, and he acted like a child. So here is Nick Sirianni and going back and forth with Eagles fans yesterday.
We thrive off the crowd when they cheer for us. That's all I'll say. Like when our crowd cheers for us, we thrive off them. We hear them when they boo. We don't necessarily like it. I don't think that's productive for anybody. But when they cheer for us and when we got them rolling, we love it.
Think about how soft the Eagles have become. That's a fan base that's known for booing. And the booing is to hold people accountable. I'll never forget the first game after they won the Super Bowl. They are playing at home up against the Falcons. The Eagles got booed off the field at halftime because it was a lethargic effort. And after the game, Malcolm Jenkins said to the media, "I'm just glad that our fans didn't get spoiled because I thought winning a championship means they wouldn't boo anymore, and I'm glad that they still booed because they should have booed us in the first half with that performance." That's a dude that gets it. And then Nick Sirianni is going to say the booing isn't productive? You really want to isolate yourself from the fan base? You really want to show me that you don't understand Philadelphia and you don't have the mental toughness to be a head coach in this league? Oh, our fans were booing. Play better. You don't want them to boo? Have your team play better. Because it's not like it was just one game. Your offense has been lousy since that team started 10-1 a year ago. They have been a lousy offense with enough talent. It's not like you don't have the talent. But, oh, God forbid they boo the fans. Here is Nick Sirianni when he was asked on the team's slow starts that are turning into an habitual problem on the offensive side of the ball.
Because y'all are making a big deal about it. I mean, it's like, guys, we're going to figure it out. We're going to fix it. We've known how to score in the past. Like, we get it. You guys have a job to do, and you're going to fixate on one thing, and you're going to be like, oh, they haven't started fast, or they haven't turned the ball over. Like, we got it. Like, we're going to do everything we can do to fix it. Like, and I don't want that to be in their heads. That's why I'm basically telling you guys, all right, we got it. We'll figure it out. Like, the defense started their off. The defense started their It was 10-0 to start the football game off, and the defense didn't let up a play. And so they played their so they started fast, right? And we'll get it figured out on offense. We will get it figured out on offense. Do you think that was funny?
And he's saying you think that's funny because his 3 kids at the podium, they were laughing. They were laughing at their father because he was cursing and he was freaking out and he was going nuts. Nick Sirianni can't do, we'll get it figured out on offense. This has now been almost a full season where you haven't got it figured out. Because it goes back to the second half of last year and through the first half of this season, your offense continues to look lethargic and disappointing. This dude, used to get the city of Philadelphia. This dude used to press the right buttons. But now with adversity, he's thinking he's above the city and he thinks he understands the city when he doesn't. You're complaining about booing. You're chastising the media for basically asking about the slow starts on offense. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Chris Greer. When Chris Greer got up in front of the podium this year, before the season started, it was like, oh, you guys care more about the offensive line issues than we do. We'll be fine. The offensive line's fine. And look how that turned out. And Sirianni had his Chris Greer moment the other day. This dude just don't get it. He just doesn't get it. He doesn't. And you're employing a child, a big baby right now as your head coach. And the organization emasculated him before the start of the season anyway. You're not calling the plays. You don't communicate to the quarterback. That's for Kellen Moore. It's like, what do you do? And you can't even manage your locker room. You can't even talk to the media the right way. So I have not heard this yet, but I saw it on social media that Nick Sirianni had a press conference today, and it's being kind of dubbed as an apology for his actions yesterday. I have not heard this audio. Santer gave me a look where he's like, I don't even know if it's really that much of an apology, but let's listen up. This is Nick Sirianni a few moments ago.
What I was really doing, I was trying to bring energy yesterday, enthusiasm yesterday. And I'm sorry and disappointed on how my energy was directed at the end of the game. And my energy should be all in on coaching, motivating, right, and celebrating with our guys. And so, that's, and I got to have better wisdom and discernment of when to use that energy. And that wasn't the time.
Okay. But you're an NFL coach. You're not a college coach. Maybe Nick Sirianni, when he gets fired by the Eagles at the end of the year, go coach college. Because that shtick could work in college. It doesn't work in the NFL. And it's wild where this guy, who he walked into the job, was terrible to start, then turned the team around, made the playoffs when they shouldn't have made the playoffs, then got to the Super Bowl, and then last year starts off 10-1. How quickly all that positive momentum has just evaporated. Because that's how detrimental he's been. And what does he do to fix a problem? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. I will not toss the news brief here, but I will toss to an update. And when we do come on back, we got to get to a little onside, offside. Standing by with the latest Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash, El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
All right, Zach, game 2 NLCS. You got the Mets in front of the Dodgers, 2-0, top of the second, looking for more. They got second and third, and now bases loaded with 2 outs. An intentional walk of Francisco Lindor led off the game with a solo shot that snapped the consecutive scoreless inning streak with the Dodgers, tying the 66 Orioles at 33 straight. And now Mark Vientos steps to the plate. A bullpen game for the Dodgers, looking to take a 2-0 series lead, but the Mets looking to blow this one open, possibly in the second inning. A 2-0 advantage. Tyrone Taylor with an RBI double earlier this inning. Tonight, it's game 1 of the ALCS, Yankees and Guardians, Carlos Rodon and Alex Cobb. Dolphins have struggled without Tua Tagovailoa, and Mike McDaniel asked for the latest on Tua.
Continued to be positive. There's still information that he's seeking this week, and as far as timelines go, I know he's not playing this week, and I do expect to see him playing football in 2024. But where that is exactly, we'll let the process continue.
Lions pass rusher Aidan Hutchinson, successful surgery on his broken leg. No timetable for his return. The Jets and Bills Monday Night Football later. I'm Marco Belletti.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on X. Our handle is INF Sports Network. That's INF Sports Network on X.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb.
Oh my God. Mark Vientos hit a grand slam, and the Mets are up 6-0 early against the Dodgers. Oh. If you could have seen the show when we were in break, I was screaming. I walked in the newsroom. Hickey was screaming, and I said, soft handshake. Because I think if Hickey and I slammed hands the way that it was going, either my hand would have broke or his hand would have been broke.
Most likely his, I would say.
I don't know about that, actually.
Really?
When the Mets played the Braves, that game where Lindor hit the home run to right field to take that lead in the ninth, I walked into the newsroom and I saw Hickey throw a chair in elation.
Oh, that's right. He did do that, yeah.
And then I went to go give him like a fist pump, and he was emotionally blacked out. He didn't even realize I was standing right in front of him. And I'm not like a puny man. I'm 6'4" and a lot of man. That comes with Zach Gelb. And Hickey didn't even see me standing in front of him. That's a different level of sports psycho. Hot take, Hickey. But anyway, onside, offside time. Bobby Carpenter going to join us 15 minutes from now. What do you got for me today, Stuart?
All right, Zach. Well, Tua hasn't played for the Dolphins since suffering that gruesome concussion in Week 2 against the Bills. However, this week, head coach Mike McDaniel made it pretty clear whether or not we'll see Tua back on the field this season.
Continue to be positive. There's still information that he's seeking this week. As far as timelines go, I know he's not playing this week, and I do expect to see him playing football in 2024, but where that is exactly, we'll let the process continue.
So onside, offsides, the Dolphins can still make the playoffs this season if Tua comes back in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, they could still make the playoffs. I think that it would go for one more week, right? And then he would come back, when he's first eligible. That's what I would anticipate. They could still make the playoffs, but I don't think it's necessarily because I think the Dolphins are all that great, but it's more so because the AFC, it's open, right? There's been a lot of teams that have struggled. The Jets have struggled out of the gate. You take a glance at the Bengals. They've struggled out of the gate. The Browns have been horrendous. So there's been teams that we thought, the Jaguars, they're 1-5. There are teams that we thought were going to be solid, and they haven't. So they could still make the playoffs, but also, what kind of version are you going to get of Tua behind that offensive line as well? Like, I picked them to miss the playoffs before the season started. Behind that offensive line, like one more hit, and then we're talking about Tua being out for the rest of the season. I know people say his career, but every time we have that career conversation, he ends up keep on playing. So can they still make the playoffs if Tua comes back the next couple of weeks? I will say onsides, but I don't feel great about it.
All right, well, sticking in the AFC East, your Patriots dropped their game against the Texans. But Drake May looked pretty decent in his first start. The third overall pick passed for 243 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks, leading the Patriots to their most points in a game this season. So onsides, offsides, Drake May will be the Pats starter for at least the next 5 years.
The Patriots had 3 passing touchdowns. 3 passing touchdowns. That's incredible. That's how low my level of expectations are for this team. The line sucks. They're pulling guys off other teams' practice squads, and then they're starting for the Patriots. This line is horrible, and they don't have enough skill position players. But Drake May did more with less. So when I was watching him, I saw a little Josh Allen. I saw a little Justin Herbert as well. I think the Patriots have their quarterback, but now they got to invest in that offensive line and get him some skill position players to actually throw the ball to. That will be the task this offseason. So if you put a gun to my head, will May be there for 5 seasons? Yeah, I think so, even though that's like crazy to say after one game. But I like what I did see in a very small sample size the other day, so I will go on sides.
All right, the Hassan Reddick situation is still unsolved, but a few new developments might end the holdout. Now, last week, Reddick and his agent parted ways, and then he hired a new one this weekend and plans to meet with the team after tonight's game against the Bills. So onsides, offsides, adding Reddick back into the mix won't change much for the reeling Jets.
Well, they brought in Drew Rosenhaus. I would still be surprised if they get a deal done to get Hassan back on the field. Maybe the Detroit Lions come calling, and that could save this whole scenario. I saw EJ Stewart from Maggie and Perloff suggest that was a good suggestion by EJ. But adding Reddick back into the mix won't change much for the reeling Jets. I'm actually going to go on sides here, and here's why. The Jets have a good defense. Now, they could use more of a pass rush, and Reddick would bring that, but the offensive line still stinks. Aaron Rodgers is still basically playing on one leg at the age of 40, and there's a chemistry problem. So Reddick isn't on the offensive side of the ball. That's why I don't think getting Reddick back, if they even do, would change much for the reeling Jets. So when you say adding Reddick back into the mix won't change much for the reeling Jets, I will go on sides.
Now, Texas smacked Oklahoma in the Red River Shootout this weekend, smoking their rival 34-3. After the game, Longhorn players planted a Texas flag through a Baker Mayfield jersey, harkening back to when Baker planted an OU flag at Ohio State. Yesterday, Baker responded.
That's just a kid from Austin, Texas that went to Oklahoma and won his last 2 Red River games and being rent-free in their heads for almost a decade now. So, yeah, it's a good feeling.
So onsides, offsides, you have a problem with what the Texas players did on Saturday.
Yeah, I do on sides. Like, have a little respect. Baker Mayfield's a legend. Baker Mayfield is one of the great college quarterbacks of all time, and his play in that rivalry speaks for itself. So go after the players on the other team, not past players on the other team. That's what didn't make any sense to me. And it's amazing how they bring the Baker Mayfield jersey out onto the field and then plant the flag through the jersey. Like, unless I missed something and Baker said something before the game, which I don't think he did, I just think that's stupid. Like, there has to be some respect for the legends of this sport. And those players had no part in what Baker Mayfield did up against Texas. So why are you like, oh, this is for our guys that couldn't beat Baker? That's what we're doing it for? That just seems silly and stupid to me. So I do have a problem with that on sides.
Now, after dropping their first game of the season to USC, LSU and Brian Kelly have reeled off 5 straight wins, including Saturday's impressive 29-26 overtime win against Ole Miss. The Tigers moved up to 8th in the polls, just 1 spot behind Alabama, and host the Tide in just 3 weeks. Onsides, offsides, LSU will beat Bama at home on November 9th.
LSU could score in Alabama's defense because Alabama's defense is a problem, but can their defense find a way to slow down the Alabama offense? And that would be my biggest concern. And Ole Miss's offense has been overrated, as we saw a few weeks ago up against Kentucky. So LSU will beat Bama at home on November 9th. I'll still take the Crimson Tide there because with Brian Kelly at LSU, there's been some good moments, there's been some bad moments. They just got a nice victory, so then they'll probably lose in a few weeks. So I will go offside when you ask me. LSU will beat Alabama at home on November 9th.
Offside.
Dylan Gabriel in Oregon moved up to number 2 in the polls thanks to their epic 32-31 win over the Buckeyes on Saturday. Gabriel threw for 341 yards and 2 touchdowns and added another score on the ground. Gabriel leaped ahead of Cam Ward in the Heisman odds and sits behind just Ashton Jeanty after the Boise star ripped off another 217 yards. Just incredible. Onsides, offsides. If Oregon wins the Big Ten, Dylan Gabriel should win the Heisman.
Definitely should be a finalist, could win it. But I can't say right now that just because he wins the Big Ten means he will definitely win the Heisman. When Ashton Jeanty, even though you could say, oh, he just plays for Boise State, but he's on pace right now for 2,496 yards and 36 total touchdowns, which is just stupid. And I saw Travis Hunter unfortunately got hurt this past weekend, as well as Kansas State just survived up against Colorado. So if Oregon wins the Big Ten, Gabriel should win the Heisman. I'm not ready to go there yet, but he's definitely going to be in the mix. So I will say offside.
Offside. All right, last one here, Zach. The Mets' magic seem to have run out just for a night, though.
Yeah, this is a premature question.
Yeah, they got crushed by the Dodgers 9-0 game 1, but are currently up 6-0 in the second inning in game 2. So onsides, offsides, despite the Dodgers' dominance in game 1, you're still confident in your Mets to win this series.
Yeah, like, did the sport fan get so soft all of a sudden? I've seen my team down in hockey 3 games to 1 and come on back. Like, I said today going into this one, I thought the Mets absolutely would win. And it's only 6-0 right now. There's still a lot of game left with the Mets bullpen. There's still a lot of work to do. But there was no doubt in my mind today that the Mets were winning this game. Because anytime this team gets punched and this team gets knocked down, they get off the mat, they come back swinging hard, and they counter with some big punches. So this idea that the Mets' magic ran out after 1 loss, like, give me a break. And look, 6-0 here. This is a premature question. And you know what? I got 2 Yankee fans on the other side of the glass, and Samter and Stu, so that's why these garbage questions get asked on this show. So despite the Dodgers' dominance, still confident in your Mets' ability to win the World Series? Yeah, I'm confident. I'm not going to say it's a lock they win the World Series, but I like what I'm seeing out of this team. This team has great team chemistry, and they just have a magic flair to them. So let's keep it going. Let's keep calm. 1 game at a time. You're up 6-0. Going out there and win this one. Bobby Carpenter joins us next. Talking college football. It is Zach Gelb Show.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, hour number 3 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We have Mets-Dodgers Game 2 right now, the NLCS. The Dodgers blew out the Mets in Game 1. And in Game number 2, Lindor started the game with the bang, a home run. And then in the second inning, Mark Vientos hit a grand slam. The Mets are currently up 6-0 in the top of the third. Sean Manaea on the hill for the Mets today. The Dodgers going with the bullpen game. We are currently in the top of the third right now. Mets up 6-0 against the Dodgers with no out. Marte is up, and the Mets have a man on first base as well. So we'll keep you posted on that. The ALCS also gets underway tonight, Yankees and Guardians. Hey, Stu, let me ask you a question. because it kind of feels like the Yankees, with the Astros being out of it, even though this wasn't a great year for the Astros, a lot of people, including yours truly, feel as if the Yankees have a bye to the World Series, right? They quickly dispose of the Royals in 4 games, and now you have a Guardians team who's a very good baseball team and is having a surprising season this year. They're always a solid club, but first full year without Francona, right? You didn't know how it was going to go. We know our boss's son is the general manager of the Cleveland Guardians, or a former boss's son, Mike Chernoff. Mikey is running the Guardians. Does it all concern you how everyone just assumes with the Yankee team under Aaron Judge, even though Judge is phenomenal, that they've got to this point so many times before, but they haven't got the deal done? Do you not like that nationally everyone feels so calm about the Yankees finding a way to get to the World Series this year?
I don't blame them, but it does concern me because you're right. They are a good team. They have a very good bullpen, some good pitchers, good defense. Not a lot of star power, but just a lot of solid baseball players. So I think it's going to be a long series. I'm not someone who thinks the Yankees are going to sweep or win in 5. I think it's going to go 6 or 7.
And just like last night, not that it wins you the series, but I would think, right, you would go into game 1 and from afar, people would say, hey, it's more important for the Mets. It's more important than the Guardians to get on the board in game 1 and get that victory. I actually think the opposite. I think it's more important for what the Dodgers did last night, even though it has not translated in today, and the Yankees tonight, to get off the mat in game 1 and going out there and get that victory. Because if you drop game 1, then the other team's playing with house money in game 2 and they already did their job on the road, and it puts more pressure on the team that is expected to win the series. So that's why I think there's more pressure on the Yankees tonight than there is on the Cleveland Guardians. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. What a wild weekend, by the way, in college football. You had the craziness late at night between Oregon and Ohio State with the controversial ending. You had a very fascinating ending as well with Penn State and USC out west. So let's welcome in a former Ohio State linebacker, now is the host of Morning Juice on 97.1 The Fan in Columbus, and that's our pal, Bobby Carpenter, kind enough to jump on board with us on what is a very busy Monday after a crazy weekend of football. Bobby, always great to have you on. Thanks for the time. How you been?
Hey, I've been great, Zach. Thanks for having me on. And, I guess the one reprieve Ohio got was the Guardians be able to get that on Saturday. So hopefully they can keep that rolling into the ALCS here with the Yankees, despite about a 3-1 payroll deficit, I think, with them and the other 3 teams that are left.
Yeah, it was crazy because I kind of thought the Tigers were going to win that game 5, and I love Tarek Skubal, and he looked dominant. And then that one inning and that one swing really by Lane Thomas just changed the entire game, where, boom, you get a grand slam and you tied it up the batter before. That was really something that we got to see on a bizarre start time of 1:08 p.m. Eastern time because of the weather in a deciding game of an ALDS.
Yeah, it worked out well because Ohio State was on in the evening, so I think everybody got to kind of straddle everything they wanted. And Rod Manfred's he's almost there. He can taste the matchups that he wants, whether you get the Subway Series or the classic Dodgers Yankees. The Guardians are the only team that he does not want to see be a part of this, and I completely understand that. They're a scrappy bunch of guys, and that's with baseball. You pitch 7 great innings. It takes one curveball, you hang something a little bit, next thing you know, it's in the front row.
All right, let's get to the Buckeyes. Down the stretch in that game, they had the penalty where they thought they were in field goal position, then it pushes them out. They let 7 valuable seconds tick off the clock, and then towards the end, they're just not able to get one more play because the time did run out. Just how about the lack of awareness that we saw in the final 90 seconds from the Ohio State Buckeyes?
Yeah, the main thing, I think the issue was the clock restarting after that OPI, the not stopping on an offensive penalty. And I don't think that maybe there was nearly as much urgency after that as there should have been. And that's really, outside of that, you're trying to get one more yard. Oregon's throwing another guy out there to burn 6 seconds off the clock, which I kind of have a moral objection against because they changed the rule about 10, 11 years ago about 12-player participation, going from a 15-yard down to a 5-yard penalty. Really, Will Howard, he scrambles, tries to get down. He's trying to pick up more yards to make that a more manageable field goal. They have the timeout. They don't get it off in time. But like you said, that 7 to 10 seconds that were burned after the OPI and the totality of the game. That's really the only issue that I had about as far as game management. I thought Ryan Day did a pretty good job otherwise. They threw the ball pretty well. They ran it well in the first half. Oregon's a really darn good team. And Zach, I've talked to a number of guys who went out to that game who had coached other places, have played other places, and just the volume there, they said they would put it on par with any place that they'd been at. LSU at night, Neyland Stadium at night, Auburn, Penn State. I mean, it was loud. And for having 55, 60,000 people, I mean, it's a tough little hornet's nest to walk into.
How do you view Ryan Day as a head football coach? Because he's only had 9 losses in his career, but we know they've lost the last 3 seasons to Michigan. They haven't won a Big Ten championship in the last 3 seasons. And these big games, they just don't usually end the way that the Ohio State fan envisions them, with them on the right side of things.
Yeah, losing the last 3 Michigan games. You throw the Georgia game in there in the Peach Bowl. I mean, that was tough. I think Ryan I saw a stat against top 10 teams, he's like 8-8. He's 2-7, I believe, against top 5. But when you're playing those top 5, there's a reason why you're in there to begin with. And if you lose the close ones, like you can't win the big one, it's the mismanagement. Like I didn't see gross mismanagement really in a lot of those different games. I'm around Ryan a lot. I see Ohio State. I've seen a lot of good coaches, Zach. I've seen bad. Ohio State, I think, as a fan base, is probably overreacted. They have high expectations, which is rightfully deserved. They expect to win all of those games. The reality, though, in college football now with where you're at, like that game isn't overly punitive. Now, it does slim down your margin for error, but I don't think anybody thought Ohio State was going to go 16-0 this year. I don't know if anybody is going to go 16-0 in college football. It's just a really tough landscape to be able to do that in. And I always say, if you're going to get rid of them, tell me a better coach that you can say definitively is out there. Kirby Smart, he's done a good job. He's won national championships. They're struggling a little bit right now. We were ready to hoist Kalen DeBoer up as the combination of Bear Bryant and Nick Saban, and then all of a sudden the last 2 games, it's looked really rough. So I think Ryan does a really good job. You've got to find a way to win those. This season they have a veteran team. They've got to come away with it. That game, you lose by a point on the road to a team that's ranked 3rd in the country, in a game that you probably feel like you should have won. And so you've got to take a look at that, figure out, is it a turnover here? It's a special teams, issue there. Maybe you got to get one more stop. The defense wasn't really all that great. Offensively, you did enough to win. I think if you score 31 points, you're in a good spot, but you've got to find those margins around the edges so that it's not a close game at the end.
Here's the fascinating part about this Bobby Carpenter, because it's one thing for fans to put pressure on a coach. I think that's totally warranted with the way that it's gone the last 3 years. I was surprised before the start of the season to hear what I heard from Urban Meyer and then Jim Tressel. Don't get me wrong. This is a very talented team. But for them to say this is like the greatest roster they've ever seen at Ohio State, there's been better rosters, and that's not taking anything away from this roster. But I thought that was 2 former Ohio State coaches that were the standard, putting a little extra pressure and trying to kick Ryan Day a little bit in the tushy to say, hey, let's go. Let's get this thing rocking and rolling again.
And here's the thing, because it's kind of a compliment, but it also lays those expectations out there. Saying that you've assembled one of the best rosters, that if not the best roster in college football or Ohio State history, whatever, what have you. Like that's a great job putting this together, but now ultimately come the expectations with that. And I don't know if Tress was trying to do that. I don't think Urban maybe had that quite in mind with when they said it back in June, but that's something that's hung around now. And you heard guys saying championship or bust and things like that. The new AD Ross Bjork has kind of tried to temper that down because, I don't think he wants to be like, you expect me to fire Ryan Day if we finish, we lose a game to Texas or someone at the end of the season in the national championship. Like the guy's done a really good job, but there is expectations that come with that. And he's been close. He lost in a semifinal to Clemson in a rough matchup, lost to a Bama team in 20 that was great. They've been on the doorstep. They've come up short to Michigan the last 3 years. And these are good Michigan teams. Like the last team won the national championship. But in doing that, that also kind of puts that onus then directly back on you when your rival wins. Like, then, okay, it's time to step up and get it done. So there is a lot of pressure. And maybe those 2 guys, I don't know if it was overt of what they were doing back in the summer. I don't think they would be saying it now. and just things hang around forever with social media and the fact that sports is so prominent that it never goes away.
I'm sure you got in these conversations, in what we do before Bobby Carpenter, but you talked about if they want to get rid of him, who are some names that have kind of been floated on out there that you could see being a fit at Ohio State if they said at the end of the year, okay, we're just going to move in a different direction?
Well, I'll tell you names that people have floated to me that I hear in my social media mentions anytime this stuff comes up. I mean, people always say, well, hire Mike Vrabel. He's just, consulting with the Browns now. I'm like, Mike Vrabel, I don't believe wants to coach college. I haven't overtly asked him that. I know Mike. I don't feel like that's something he wants to do at this point. People throw out Luke Fickell, who's at Wisconsin, who did a great job at Cincinnati. Like, he just got there. Like, they're improving, probably not as fast even for their fans up there. But I can't promise you that Luke Fickell is going to be better than Ryan Day, nor can I promise you that he would take that job right now when he just got to Wisconsin. And Luke, being a guy of like ultra high integrity, saying he probably made some promises to them that despite an era where coaches always just hop to a better situation, he wouldn't leave, that he would want to make sure that he saw that process through at least to some sort of completion. So like those are the two people. It's always former Buckeyes that people are leaning in now on, and Ryan not being an Ohio guy, but coming here with Urban as an assistant and getting the job, that they pushed that back to kind of John Cooper, the 90s, who wasn't an Ohio guy, just because so many of the coaches, Zach, Woody Hayes and Earl Bruce, Jim Tressel, Urban Meyer, the guys that have won national championships have been from Ohio or coached at Ohio State before. But Ryan has done a really good job embracing everything about the rivalry here with Michigan and embracing the culture of Ohio State. And so it'll never be enough, Zach, until you win a national championship, and that gives you some cover. And so he knows he's got to get it done. He understands what it is. But, I mean, that's part of being the head coach at Ohio State.
It seems like you're not worried. That's kind of the sense, even after the 1 point loss.
Listen, I tell you, I've been around good coaches. I've been around bad coaches. Ryan is one of the best coaches I've ever been around. Is he perfect? No. But I've seen guys who are perceived to be good, who I can tell you I don't think are very good. And whether it's players or maybe a little luck or things have worked out, that they've gotten Super Bowls or different things like that. So I know how he operates. I believe in like the process of how they operated and the relationship, how they work with their players. So I thought they were going to win that game until there was 0 seconds left on the clock. And I still think that they have the opportunity to play for a national championship this year. And there's no one that I see on that roster that they would play rather on their schedule, including in the playoff, where I'd say, man, I don't think that they can win this game. They may have to play well to do it, but when you're talking about playing the other best teams in the country, if you don't have to play well, then maybe you're just like the 2001 Miami Hurricanes or one of these generational teams that could go out and roll your helmet out and win, against another top 5 team 30-0. But I don't think we're in that era anymore.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, Bobby, 1 being no pressure, seats freezing cold, 10 being as warm and as hot as possible, where do you think he is on the hot seat right now? Just wondering.
So hot seat's interesting. Like, as far as being fired, I would say it's below 3. Hot seat, as far as like, we're going to cook you alive, probably about a 7 or an 8 right now. Like, people say they want to get someone else. I don't think unless there's some sort of monumental meltdown, I don't think there's any worry about that. But yeah, is everybody talking? I mean, do people say crap to his kids at school, which I have vehemently opposed up for all coaches with all fan bases? Sure. Their kids don't have anything to do with it. Saying crap to someone's wife in a grocery store, like, that's the stuff that. But it is. But it comes with, hey, you're the head coach at Big State U. Everybody cares. You'll love the passion when it's for you because, I mean, you could murder someone and they drag them to the river, but when you're not getting it done, they also want to sit there and fry you all the time and make sure it feels as rough as possible. So I would say, yeah, right now in Columbus, and they have a bye week, the worst possible bye week you could have for losing that game, that it's hot. It's 7.5, 8. I mean, it doesn't feel good. They're going to have to win, and they're going to have to beat Penn State, beat Nebraska, beat Penn State. And then all of a sudden, like, the AC starts to come back on and things start to regulate a little bit, and people believe that this team can then win a national championship once again.
I know you don't think he's going to get fired, but if they did go that route at the end of the year, if they call Urban Meyer and say, hey, we want you to coach again, do you think Urban would say no?
I will tell you this. I love Urban Meyer. I've enjoyed him. He's been good to me when I was around. My brother was a GA for him. I think if you probably asked Urban in a private moment, I don't know if he could coach. And I think he's addressed this. I don't think he could coach in this era of football. Like and that's, you see Nick Saban getting out a lot of guys. Like you have to be, it is so much work, Zach, because to coach guys hard, you have to have a great relationship with them. And they have to have trust. And to have a great relationship and trust that has developed over time. And when you're bringing in guys in the portal and stuff, you have to be so selective and make sure that you're balancing like talent and character. Because if not, you get what goes on at Florida State right now and some of these other schools where you lose a game or two and like people just push their chips in. Or you see the Malachi Brown situation at Bama where he's yelling back at coaches not coming off the field. Like it is harder now to coach players in college than even in the NFL. Because in the NFL, you can cut guys and you can go get other guys off the street. I mean, you can trade. Like, your roster is your roster in college during the season. So love it or hate it, you have to usually try to play the best players, and you better hope that those best players have great character about them, and it's really tough to do. So if they would ask Urban, I don't think that would be a prudent move. And I also don't think at this point in his career that he would want to take that on knowing what it entails.
Since you bring up Alabama, right, they were rock stars in the first half up against Georgia. Second half against Georgia, they won, but that got way too close with what the score was. They even lost the lead at one point. Then they weren't hung over and celebrated. They just got dominated by Vanderbilt, and they were lucky to win that game up against South Carolina. I know a big one this weekend up against Tennessee, where we'll learn a lot about Alabama, but what do you make of them so far? Because they were looking like a national championship team in the first half up against Georgia, and since then, this has gotten ugly quickly.
It has, and this is like college football where we're at. And they're playing a game against Tennessee, who Tennessee losing to Arkansas kind of changed everything for them. They're in overtime against Florida, which everyone thought like Florida's done, Billy Napier's out of here. This is a game where both of these teams, the loser has eliminated any margin for error now if you have two losses. Like you can survive in the Big Ten and SEC, I think, if you go 10-2, and you have a good schedule and some good wins. 9-3. Now you're throwing the craps out there now. You better have a lot of help and you better have some signature wins to be able to get it done. And so as quickly as we're ready to get out the anointing oil, to quote my old coach Bill Parcells, like they will string you up that quick as well. And I think the honeymoon, it was short while Kalen DeBoer may have had the shortest 1 week honeymoon in the history of football because people were ready. They're getting the statue made that we're on from Saban. We got this offensive guy and we're good to go now. And they're playing Tennessee and both of them are fighting for their life. In this Bama team, they don't look as disciplined as they've been under Nick Saban. And I haven't been around the team. I've been there watching practices and everything else. But there seems to be something missing. They may be more explosive on offense, but they don't seem to have that same level of discipline. I don't want to say focus, but direction maybe that you used to see.
Last thing I'll ask you, Bobby Carpenter. I thought it was football malpractice what Lincoln Riley did at the end of that game, but Penn State won. They're ranked the third best team in the country, which is wild to me because I think they're just a good team, not a great team, but that's how open this sport is. Give me a thought or two about USC Penn State and where you think the Nittany Lions are heading towards.
Penn State was one of those teams that I put a lot like Ole Miss, where they've always been right around there and like 12 team, they'll get in, but could they really win it? After watching this a little more, like I'm a believer. Like they went out to USC. We talked about this, like a desperate team. They'd lost a couple of games. If they want to have any shot, they were going to have to be clean the rest of the way. Lincoln Riley I talked to some people at Oklahoma about this too. Like these are the games that Lincoln Riley wins. He'll lose the game that he's not supposed to, but against Penn State coming in at home, that's where they'll play well and they'll win. And give them credit. I mean, they jumped out. They had a lead. They had control of the game. And James Franklin, to his credit, kept kind of clawing around, didn't panic, kept playing well, and like literally waited for USC to kind of implode a little bit and just kept punching. And they came away with a victory. And albeit it was a close one and it wasn't easy, it probably didn't feel good. But I think there is some realness to Penn State that I did not see there before.
He is Bobby Carpenter. Bobby, appreciate the time as always. Thanks for doing this.
My pleasure, Zach. Anytime.
There you go. Bobby Carpenter. Great segment right there on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Check him out. Mornings, host of Morning Juice, the 97.1, The Fan in Columbus. We'll take a break. We'll do a little no-huddle offense next.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Touchdowns, sacks, upsets.
upsets, and last-minute heroics. Another NFL Sunday is in the books, and we've got you covered with the biggest plays and sound bites from another wild week in the National Football League. It's time for No Huddle Offense on the Zach Gelb Show.
You know, it's funny. When you give out NFL picks on a Friday, Sunday rolls around and you could sometimes look at your picks and you could go, ooh, I don't like that. And that's happened a lot this year. On Sunday, I looked at the 3 picks that I gave on Friday and I said, wow, I really love those picks. And I had a great confidence that I was going to go 3-0. So I covered with the Chargers laying 3. I covered with the Falcons laying 6. And that game, Bengals-Giants, the Bengals were a 4-point favorite. It looked like I wasn't going to cover. It looked like the Giants were going to lose 10-7. And then Chase Brown had that 30-yard touchdown run right at the end of the game, which got me the cover. So a good 3-0 week. Giants lose to the Bengals 17-7, and that's where we'll start. Joe Burrow in the game, 208 passing yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, but did have 55 rushing yards and a long 47-yard rushing touchdown. T. Higgins, 7 catches for 77 yards. Jamar Chase, only 5 catches for 72 yards. Daniel Jones, 205 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick at 56 rushing yards. And the Giants had 24 first downs and 74 plays. Bengals only 13 first downs on 52 plays. But the Bengals win 17-7. Giants fall to 2-4. Bengals improve to 2-4. And let's hear that Joe Burrow 47-yard rushing touchdown. This made it 7-0 right out of the gate.
Burrow waits, takes the snap, back to pass, steps up in the pocket. Burrow's going to run. He's got green grass in front. 35-30, 25-20, 15 to the 10. Burrow to the 5, diving to the pylon, and Burrow is in. Touchdown Bengals. Joe Burrow with a 47-yard touchdown run, and Cincinnati strikes first. Who had that on the bingo card? Burrow with a 47-yard scoring scamper.
Stu, what's the question that we got cooking on this one?
All right, Bengals now 2-4. Can they actually turn their season around and make a playoff push?
So they play the Browns next week. You would think then that they would get to 3-4. But I can't give them the benefit of the doubt to go make the playoffs this year. Even in their wins, they look sloppy. You know, they beat the Panthers 34-24. Whoop-de-damn-do. You let the Panthers hang around for a while. And up against the Giants, that game was close, and they could have lost that game. So they only have 2 wins this year, and they haven't played great. So let's examine the losses. That defense was terrible up against the Patriots. They made the offensive line for the Patriots look good. They couldn't close the game late up against the Chiefs because of a boneheaded penalty. They made Jaden Daniels, I know he's good, but they made him look like a Hall of Famer. And then Joe Burrow had 5 passing touchdowns, and they still lost to the Ravens 2 weeks ago. So I think there's too much bad on the defense, and offensively, they're good. They could be solid, but they've dug themselves in a deep hole. So I'm going to take the field. When you ask me, the Bengals, could they beat one of the 7 teams to get to the postseason, get a wild card spot with what I've seen so far? Even when they win, I'm not walking away enamored by their play, and I think a lot of people just give them the benefit of the doubt because of the past. All righty, let's get to London. Across the pond we go as the Jaguars, well, they do what the Jaguars usually do in the United States, this time just in London, England, and that's lose football games. Jeez Louise, this team is 1-5. They stink to start off the year. And the Chicago Bears, they've turned things around. They are 4-2 after their 35-16 beatdown of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence underwhelming in this one, 234 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Jaguars only had 68 total rushing yards in the game. Caleb Williams was awesome in this one, 226 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a pick. Also had 56 rushing touchdowns. And in his last 4 games, he has 1,050 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, and 3 picks. The Bears are on fire right now. And let's hear Caleb Williams find Keenan Allen to really blow this baby open, 21-3, and a 9-yard passing touchdown.
Caleb Williams in the gun. He has the ball. Back to him. Right-hander back to throw. In the middle of the end zone. Throwing. It's caught. It's a touchdown, Chicago. The Bears find pay dirt again. It's Keenan Allen. His first touchdown as a Chicago Bear. And the Bears are pouring it on the Jaguars at Spurs.
All righty, Stu, what do we got cooking on this one?
All right, will Caleb Williams lead the Bears to the playoffs in year 1?
So I picked the Bears to make the postseason before the season did commence. I had 3 playoff teams going to the postseason from the NFC North. I didn't really consider the Vikings to be that much of a threat, and the Vikings are 5-0. So all 4 of these teams can make the postseason. I don't think all 4 will just because they go up against one another. And I still believe that 3 out of the 4 will get in. The Lions will be a postseason team. The Packers will be a postseason team. And after starting 5-0, the Vikings better be a postseason team. So I think the Bears are going to have a really good season. But I think because of the division they play in, they will just miss out on the postseason. Next stop, let's go to Nashville. Colts and Titans. And this one, it was sloppy, but Indianapolis finds a way to improve to 3-3. Tennessee falls to 1-4. Let's listen up and let's hear Joe Flacco, elite Joe Flacco, find Michael Pittman. This was an insane throw. This was an insane catch, and it made it 20-17.
Flacco, 5-step drop, throws off his back foot into the end zone, going up and making a bid on the ball is Michael Pittman Jr.
I think he got it. I think he got it.
I-N-D-Y. Pittman puts the Colts on top. A 10-yard pass. Flacco to Pittman, and the Colts lead 19-17 in Nashville.
You know, I did a double take here because I thought that was longer than 10 yards. But the pressure was right there in Flacco's face. He's fading away. He tosses that ball up, and the ball felt like it was in the air for forever. But it was only for 10 yards. It was only for like a second or two that it was in the air, and Michael Pittman just made a great catch. So good win by Indianapolis. They're now 3-3. Tennessee's an absolute mess. Will Levis, 95 yards passing, a touchdown and a pick. DeAndre Hopkins, only 4 catches for 54 yards. Tony Pollard had 17 carries for 93 yards and a touchdown. And Joe Flacco, 189 yards, 2 passing touchdowns and interception. 7 touchdowns, 1 interception in 3 games with a 2-1 record for the Indianapolis Colts. And Stu, Anthony Richardson getting healthier. Is he going to play their next contest? What's the next question that we got here?
Yeah, Shane Steichen said that it will be Richardson next week as long as he doesn't suffer any setbacks. Do you think that's the right decision?
So they play the Dolphins, and I like Joe Flacco a lot. One of the more fascinating careers. And even though Flacco gives them a better case to win, you got to figure out what you have in Anthony Richardson. Because he was a top 5 draft pick. Last year got hurt. Now is there. In year 2, hurt again. When he's ready to go, you got to let him play because you got to figure out this year if he has signs of being your franchise quarterback or not. All righty, let's get to the next game. The Cardinals at the Packers. I was excited to see this game. I thought there was going to be a lot of points in this game and it was going to be back and forth, but the Packers would win. Well, the Packers just blew out the Cardinals 34-13. The Cardinals are 2-4. The Packers, they are now 4-2 on the season. And when you look back at this game, Romeo Dobbs, remember, suspended last week. He had 2 touchdowns in this one. Christian Watson, welcome back. 3 catches for 68 yards and a touchdown. Jordan Love had 4 passing touchdowns in this one. Marvin Harrison Jr., no catches in this one. He did leave the game with the scary concussion in the second quarter. And Kyler Murray had 214 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions, and only 14 rushing yards. Let's listen up, though. This is Jordan Love on a 44-yard connection with Christian Watson. This made it 24-0. Go, Pack, go!
Play action Love, looking, winds up, rainbows, Watson there, touchdown! Yes! 44 yards and a Lambeau leap to the north end zone stands. He ran away from the secondary. Budda Baker in pursuit was the last resort.
Stu, what do we got cooking here?
Yeah, if Jordan Love stays healthy, do you think the Packers, now 4-2, can they win the NFC?
Yeah, I do. I wanted to see this team take the next step forward this year. That was just make an NFC championship game. But you look at the NFC right now, in the NFC East, I don't think there's a Super Bowl team there. The Commanders can't win that division. The Cowboys are going to miss the playoffs. The Eagles are coached by a bozo right now. Let's just call it what it is. In the North, you have 4 teams that look like they're playoff teams. In the South, Atlanta and Tampa Bay are the 2 best teams, but I don't view either as a Super Bowl contender. And in the West, the Niners, they get the benefit of the doubt. They won on Thursday. They've been up and down. The Rams are banged up, and they only have 1 win on the season. It's like you look around at the NFC right now, it's there for the taking. Love is a tremendous quarterback, and this Green Bay team is looking like a team that could represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. I don't think that's crazy to say. Right now, I'd still give the edge to the Lions, but can the Packers win the NFC with the healthy Jordan Love? Yes, they can. All righty, final one, Buccaneers and Saints. This was an ugly but good and fascinating game. I was really entertained by this one. It was 17-0 right out of the gate, Tampa Bay. And then you blink, and the next thing you know, New Orleans is up 20-17, and at halftime they have a 27-24 lead, and the Bucs go on to win this one 51-27. Just wild what you saw in the second half. 27 second-half points by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield, 4 touchdowns, 3 picks. Had 325 yards passing. Sean Tucker, 14 carries, 136 yards and a touchdown. Also had 3 catches, 56 yards and a touchdown. Chris Godwin was awesome in this game. 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had 594 yards on offense and 34 first downs. Now remember, no Derek Carr in this one because of the injury. Spencer Rattler did a nice job. 22 of 40 for 243 yards, a touchdown and 2 interceptions. Alvin Kamara only had 64 total yards and a touchdown. Rashid Shaheed had a 54-yard punt return for a touchdown. Let's listen up. Baker Mayfield, find Chris Godwin, why don't you? One more time. This made it 31-27. This was a 55-yard passing strike.
Play action fake. Mayfield looks downfield, throws a pass to caught ball on the left side. Out across the 50 to the 45 is Godwin. He breaks another tackle. Godwin way down the sideline, outside the numbers to the 10. 5, 3, 2, 1, touchdown Tampa Bay. Chris Godwin fought through a tackle, got his balance, and scoots 55 yards to the promised land.
Too bad that game wasn't at Tampa Bay, because whenever I hear the great Gene Deckeroff do games at Tampa Bay, I love when he goes, "Hire the cannons, hire the cannons, hire the cannons." But Stu, what do we got cooking in this one with this question?
All right, do you trust the Bucs or the Falcons more out of the NFC South right now?
Well, we just saw the Falcons slightly beat the Bucs, where the Falcons kind of snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. I do think the Falcons have a slightly higher ceiling than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, though. But I thought that conference, that division would only send 1 postseason team. They have a chance to get 2. They do have a chance to get 2 in from the NFC South this year, and the only 2 teams that have a chance would be the Buccaneers and the Falcons. All righty, that does it for a Week 6 edition of No Huddle Offense. We will take a timeout. When we come on back, I will get to a little preview of Jets and Bills, a game that I'll be going to at MetLife Stadium tonight. But Marco Belletti, I'm actually very annoyed at you. Very annoyed at you.
Okay.
Because you did something that I didn't like.
All right.
And you know you're one of my favorite people around here. And we've worked together for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
But this game is 6-0.
Mm-hmm.
When you said this, it was in the 4th inning.
Correct.
You were like, you could say it, it's over.
It's over. This game's over.
Why do you have to do that? Why?
I'm telling you the truth. This is not. This game's over. They know it. We know it. Everybody knows it. The Dodgers know it. The Mets know it. Move on to Game 3. They got the split. The Mets get exactly what they needed. Moving forward.
As a Met fan, I am programmed to never say a game is over until it's actually.
Look, I get that. I understand. And it's the playoffs, and you can never know. And the crazier things have happened. This game's over.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the body language. The Dodgers are like, all right, let's get on the plane.
Okay, you are now wearing a Yankee hat that I think may be older than me, if I'm being honest.
See, that's incorrect.
Oh,
Just
okay.
because I buy the same hat, this is roughly about a year and a half
Oh,
old.
really?
Yeah, I don't.
Oh, I thought you've been wearing the same hat forever.
For what, 30 years? It would disintegrate.
Can I be honest? The brim's a little dirty.
I'm
Looks
aware.
a little dusty.
It's about a year and a half old. I wear it every day.
Where's your confidence in your Yankees going into the ALCS up against the Guardians on a scale of 1 to 10? 1, no confidence, 10, all the confidence in the world.
7.
Okay.
They should win the series. There's no excuse not to win the series. There's a little bit of a danger because it's playoff baseball, and the bullpen for Cleveland is very, very good, and they're pesky.
Thing.
They're pesky. They're a pain in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the Yankees have shown the inability to hit all throughout the playoffs for the last, 15 years? So there's still that aspect of it. It's partly because Cleveland's pitching is good enough, and the Yankee hitting has not shown that they're consistent enough, especially when they get up against the wall.
Stu, you agree with that assessment?
Very much so. I'd say like a 6.5 would be my confidence.
Should I just say that series over and return the favor to you?
But see, that would be wrong. No, I don't mean that as in wrong, like in wrong in the
I'm
world,
being a
wrong,
jackass.
but it's wrong. We'll find out. Look, if they're 6-0, I would say this. If Cleveland's up 6-0 in the 6th inning, I'll tell you the game is over. I'll still watch, but I'll tell you the game is over because I don't think the Yankees have the ability to come back from that. Right now, mentally, I don't think they have that ability to do that.
It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We will preview the Monday Night Football game tonight between the Bills and the Jets. Next update time, here he is. A man that changes his hat more often than I tend to believe, El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
Zach, we're in the fifth inning, top of the fifth. The Mets dominating the Dodgers. A 6-0 advantage, looking to even up the NLCS at a game apiece. Francisco Lindor set the tone, a leadoff homer off Ryan Brazier. Bullpen game for the Dodgers. And then Landon Knack got rocked in the 2 innings of work. 5 runs, Tyrone Taylor with an RBI double, then Mark Vientos, the big blow in this one. He had a grand slam in that second inning. So the Mets a 6-0 advantage on the Dodgers with Sean Manaea just flat out cruising. 4 innings, 1 hit, 2 walks. He has struck out 57 pitches for Manaea thus far. Mets looking even the NLCS at a game apiece, a 6-0 advantage in the 5th. Tonight, you got the Yankees and Guardians, ALCS, Game 1, Carlos Rodon, Alex Cobb. Still another week remaining for the IR stint for Tua Tagovailoa. Mike McDaniel expects to see him at some point this year, unknown when, as he just continues to let the process play out. Aidan Hutchinson expected to have a full recovery after undergoing surgery on his broken leg. No timetable for his return, but the typical time for this type of injury, usually about 6 to 8 months. You got the Jets and Bills Monday Night Football to wrap up the week. Jeff Ulbrich makes his debut as Jets interim head coach. Winner gets first place in the AFC East as Buffalo comes in at 3-2. Jets 2-3. I'm Marco Belletti.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Infinity Sports Network. That's Infinity Sports Network to follow us on Instagram.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh, my God. We're back
It's time to answer Ask the Pros question of the day, and it's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Billy in New York says, Zach, who do you like tonight between the Bills and the Jets? You can submit a question by tweeting at INFSportsNet or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag #AskThePros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. I'm conflicted about this game. And Vegas is basically telling you it's a toss-up. Buffalo right now is a 1-point favorite over the New York Jets. So this is a game where usually when you fire a coach in season, there's an emotional boost that transpires with the team. Like, Stu, you know this. Jeff Saturday beat your Raiders. That was the only win. The only win Jeff Saturday had as an interim coach was when he beat the Raiders. Antonio Pierce, he won his first game, right? As the interim HC of the Raiders?
I believe he did, yes.
So, you get a little bit of an emotional boost. So part of me wants to say the Jets get an emotional boost tonight, and the Bills are all banged up. But then I just look at Buffalo and I say, the Bills have lost their last 2 games up against 2 great teams. They played the Ravens, and then they played the Houston Texans, and the Bills at least showed some fight in the second half. And if it wasn't for Sean McDermott just being a McDoofus down the stretch where he wanted to try to chuck the ball and not run the ball when his quarterback had his heels on the goal line of his own end zone, it was just one of those things where they probably should have won that game with the way that they played in the second half. So I look at the Jets, their line's bad, the quarterback's banged up, he's playing on one leg. Their defense is good, and that could cause some problems up against Josh Allen, who's kind of like Brett Favre, and he's a gunslinger, and he'll have some great touchdowns, but then also have a lot of turnovers. I actually think is, and I know he's banged up, but he's expected to play tonight. I actually think the most important player in this game, the 2 most important players, and this will determine who wins the game, I really do believe this, it's James Cook and Breece Hall. James Cook, outside of Josh Allen, is the most valuable player on that Bills offense. And for the Jets, Breece Hall is a good running back, but Breece Hall was MIA against the Broncos, MIA up against the Minnesota Vikings. Horrible up against the San Francisco 49ers. Breece Hall's got to have a big game tonight, too. So I'm going to say whichever running back performs better tonight and helps out their quarterback is going to be the one that gets the win. And even though I don't like betting against the emotional boost that you usually get from an interim coach, I'm going to say the Bills get the victory tonight. I don't love this game. I would not bet this game. But if you're asking me for a pick, I'm going to take the Bills laying the 1 point because I just think James Cook is going to do enough. And the Jets' run defense has not been great. We saw what Jordan Mason did up against them week 1. And I just trust James Cook right now more than I trust Breece Hall to help out his quarterback, even with James Cook not being at 100%. Stu, where are you at on this one? Because, I usually have a feel on these games. It may not be the right feel. It may not be the right opinion. But I usually have a good feel on each and every game, doing this job. This game, I really don't have a great feel, and nothing would surprise. If the Jets blow out the Bills tonight, would not surprise you. The Bills blow out the Jets tonight, wouldn't surprise you. The Bills beat the Jets in a sloppy game, wouldn't surprise you. The Jets beat the Bills in a sloppy game, would not surprise me. Nothing would surprise me tonight, but I'm going to lean, if you make me have a selection this one, I will lean with the Buffalo Bills to win this one in a sloppy one. I think this game's going to be sloppy.
I think the Bills win. I think it could be close, but I would be actually kind of surprised if the Jets won. I just think they're just such a mess, and just making the change at head coach doesn't necessarily, give them that boost. I just don't see it. I don't know how to describe it. I just can't see the Bills, with how not great they've been the past 2 or 3 weeks, losing another game, especially to a interim head coach.
All righty. That's the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Fun show today. Big thanks to Moist Mike. Big thanks to Stuart Kovacs as well, Marco Belletti and Bobby Carpenter, obviously joining us earlier to kick off this hour. The Mets have allowed a home run. Max Muncy has departed the building, so we are now in the bottom of the 5th. I think that's the second hit that the Dodgers have in this game. The Mets are up 6-1 up against the LA Dodgers. Bottom of the 5th, 2 outs. Shohei Ohtani is at the plate. He's 0 for 2 today with 2 strikeouts. NLCS Game 1, the Dodgers dominated the Mets. The Mets are up 6-1, and Ohtani's going to have a pop-up. A lot of sun. Early game in Los Angeles. Does not matter. Pete Alonso gets it, and we will go to the top of the 6th with the Mets up 6-1 against the Dodgers. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Zach Gelb, ZachGelb. I'm going to the game tonight, MetLife Stadium, Jets and Bills, so we'll get some good content from there, and then hopefully tomorrow we're back in the studio and we're celebrating a Mets victory. Stu, good luck to your Yankees. They go up against the Guardians tonight in the ALCS. Enjoy the football, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.